For 20 consecutive standardized exams, my answers matched my sister's with 100% accuracy, and no matter how fast I finished, she would always hand in her paper 1 second before me. The homeroom teacher called me in for 3 talks and gave me 1 official warning for cheating. My classmates would greet me with, "Hey, copycat, got caught again," but I never even touched her exam paper. How could our answers be exactly the same? It wasn't until the college entrance exam that I suddenly saw bullet comments floating in midair. Our heroine is truly the chosen one. Awakening a mind-reading ability is just too awesome. She aced all the answers by reading the female rival's mind. So what if the rival's a top student? She's just a stepping stone for our darling heroine. As I opened the test booklet, the alphabet song started playing in my head. A, B, C, D, F, G, 1. The June sunlight slanted through the exam hall window, casting a bright, glaring spot onto the answer sheet. I stared at the math paper in front of me, a slight smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Question 13, multiple choice, 5 options. The pen tip glided softly across the scratch paper, and I could feel that scorching gaze from behind me and to the right. Song Jishua was intently waiting for me to provide the answer. She thought she was hiding it well, but for this entire year, I had long grown accustomed to this kind of attention from her. An invisible thread connects our minds. Whenever I seriously think about a problem, she can hear it. Mind reading. No one in this world would believe it, but I do, because I've lived through it for over 300 days and nights. Hey, have you solved this problem yet? Let me have a look, sis. What's on your mind? Teach me, please. Every time she acts coquettish, it feels like an invasion of my mind, but behind her sweet smile, I saw the soul of a thief. But today, it all comes to an end. I sang a song silently in my heart. ABCD, ABCD. No, that feels too forced. She might be foolish, but she's no idiot. I had to give her a wrong answer that sounded plausible. My gaze settled on question 13, a comprehensive problem on conic sections. The correct answer is B, but I need to make her genuinely believe it's C. I deliberately paused in my mind, pretending to have a sudden realization. Oh, I get it now. The question setter laid a trap here. On the surface, it looks like B should be the answer, but in reality, because of the radius of curvature condition in the problem, the answer should be C. Yes, C. It has to be C then. I casually scrawled a large letter C on my scratch paper, before pretending to double-check it with faint diligence. The breathing from behind me and to the right noticeably hitched. Immediately after, I heard the soft scratch of Song Jishua's pen tip gliding across her answer sheet. She had marked C. I lowered my eyelids, veiling the cold glint in my eyes. Question 14. The correct answer is A. I resorted to my old tactics, constructing a complex logical chain in my mind. Although it seems correct too, the wording of A is ambiguous. The test maker must be testing this detail. Go with D. Song Jishua's pen moved once more. Question 15. I chose B, but in my mind, I reasoned out A. Question 16. The answer is C, but I convinced myself to pick A, the final multiple choice question. I took a deep breath and mentally executed my meticulously planned grand finale for a question where the answer should have been A. I spent a full 3 minutes in my head on rigorous deduction, only to deduce option E, non-existent, and then I had a sudden epiphany. I thought there was a mistake in the question, so I just picked B. I can just imagine the look on Song Jishua's face right now, torn and confused, yet not daring to question me, this human answer key. After all, for the past year, every single answer I've given has been correct. She has long since become dependent on me. From Song Jishua's perspective, my answer sheet was indeed completely blank because she only stared at me while I was thinking of the answer, and once I gave the answer, she was too busy copying the answers onto her own answer sheet to pay any attention to me. In the intervals while she bent over her copying, I have carefully filled in the correct answers, one by one, on the answer sheet. The pen glided across the page with precision and unwavering confidence. I knew the invigilator had already noticed me from the moment I stepped into the exam hall. That middle-aged man with reading glasses paid me some very special attention, because I was the evil older sister, the villain in Song Jishua's story, the one who was jealous of her younger sister and wanted to ruin her future. The school gossip had already spread throughout the entire grade. Did you know, Song Jishua's grades are terrible. She's always at the bottom of the class. Her younger sister Song Jishua is amazing, top of her grade, I heard. Song Jiu is extremely jealous of her younger sister and picks fights with her every day. TSK, if I had a sister like that, I'd be annoyed too. No one knows the truth. Every time Song Jishua got those high scores on major exams, she stole them from me. That sister who's hailed as a prodigy girl can't even solve a single conic section problem, and I chose silence. It's not weakness, it's that I know. The real battlefield isn't in monthly exams or rumors. It's right here, right now, on the college entrance exam floor. I'm going to make her pay back everything she stole this year. With interest, time ticked steadily away. I could sense Song Jishua's growing anxiety. She had finished all the problems, the answers I had given her, but she noticed I was solving the problems slower and slower, because I was thinking about problems that didn't even exist on her end. Yes, Every problem I gave her was a meticulously designed trap. The solution path seemed perfectly logical, yet each step led further from the correct answer. Every logical chain I constructed was like an intricately crafted maze. The entrance was wide and bright, but the exit led only to an abyss. The invigilator walked past me, glanced at my desk, and furrowed his brow slightly. I've already filled in most of the multiple choice section on my answer sheet. Just as Song Jishua bent her head to copy, I finished filling in all the correct answers. But in the teacher's eyes, it was just an ordinary scene. The underachiever finally started writing. "Hurry up," he whispered. I nodded and kept my pen moving across the answer sheet, calm and steady, question after question. The moment I finished filling in the last answer, ring, the bell signaling the end of the exam rang. I put down my pen, picked up the answer sheet, and walked toward the podium. As the proctor took it, his eyes flickered with a hint of something unspoken. He probably remembered that this same sheet had been nearly blank just half an hour ago. "Sir, I'm turning in my exam," I said calmly. He glanced down, his lips parting slightly, but said nothing in the end, just let out a quiet sigh. That sigh carried a mix of bewilderment, regret, and a sense of what on earth is this kid up to? I know what he's thinking. This student's behavior is just too inconsistent. The answer sheet went from blank to completely filled, and there just wasn't enough time. Either scribbled nonsense, or, he shook his head, refusing to dwell further. I offered no explanation, turned around, and walked out of the examination hall. A crisp voice came from behind, Song Jishua's, laced with concern she was clearly putting on. "Hey sis, how did you do on the exam? I noticed you seemed to skip a bunch of questions earlier." I turned and met her gaze, those eyes that seemed so innocent. She was faking it. She knew I had bombed the test because I hadn't shared enough answers with her, but what she didn't know is this: every answer I gave her was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong, and what she copied down was identical to the high-scoring answers she usually produced on her own. In that moment, I caught a fleeting glimpse of triumph in her eyes. She was thinking, this older sister really is useless, can't even pass the college entrance exam, good thing I have mind reading, or I'd be finished. I was thinking, go ahead and copy. The more you copy, the worse your downfall will be. Over the past year, every time an answer was stolen, I made a mental note of it. The first time she stole my homework notebook, that was mark number 1. For the first time, I publicly solved a problem that kept me up at night. The second stroke, the first time she playfully complained to my parents that I was bullying her. The third stroke, stroke by stroke, day by day, over 1,000 marks in a year. My heart is filled with tally marks, and now, the time has come to close the net. Outside the examination hall, there was a sea of people. Parents scanned the crowd for their children, their faces etched with anticipation and anxiety. I kept my head down and walked forward, not wanting to talk to anyone. "Sis, wait up for me," Song Jishua cut up, holding a bottle of bird's nest soup that had somehow appeared in her hand. "Sis, it's okay if you didn't do well on the test. I did great, so that's all that matters," she said with a beaming smile. "Mom just called and said she made your favorite dishes. Let's hurry home." I stared at the bottle of bird's nest. Mom bought it for her last week, saying it was good for the brain, and got a whole box of it, leaving it in her room. What about me? I've never even had a single bottle of milk. I'm not hungry, I said. "Oh, come on, you should eat a little something." She unscrewed the cap, and then, clatter, the bird's nest bottle fell to the floor, splashing warm liquid all over me. "Ah," Song Jishua shrieked. "Sis, what are you doing?" Her voice instantly drew the attention of everyone around. "What's going on? What happened? Isn't that the straight a student's little sister? Oh dear, is her older sister picking on her again?" A tide of whispers rose from all around. Song Jishua's eyes welled up, tears dropping with soft thuds as she whispered, "And nothing. It's just that my sister accidentally knocked over my bird's nest soup. It's fine. I won't drink it. She looks every bit the picture of a poor, bullied little thing." I stood frozen in place, watching her perform with a blank expression. This year, every single time has been the same. She stole the answers, basked in the glory, then framed someone else. Her parents believed her, her teachers believed her, everyone believed her, because she was good at studies and well-behaved and thoughtful, and beneath that sweet face lay a heart that no one could truly understand. Song Jiu. A furious shout snapped me out of my thoughts. I looked up and saw my mom, Li Xiaomei, storming toward me, shielding Song Jishua behind her and glaring at me with eyes blazing with fury. "You've been picking on your sister again, haven't you, you heartless little brat?" Song Jiangwo, who was following behind her, frowned as well. After a glance at the mess on the floor, he immediately started yelling, "You useless disgrace, failing your exams is bad enough, but now you're making a scene here too." I didn't say a word, because I know, whatever I say would be wrong. "Try to explain yourself, and you'll be called stubborn. Silence will be met with accusations of guilt, no matter what I do. In my Parents' eyes. I'll always be the disappointing older sister. Mom, don't scold sister anymore. Song Jishua tugged at her mother's sleeve at just the right moment. With red-rimmed eyes, she said, "It's not like I meant to. Let's go home already. I'm starving." All right. I'll take you to get something delicious." Li Xiaomei's expression instantly softened, patting Song Jishua's head. "I'm sure our Xiaoxua did exceptionally well on the exam today, didn't she?" Song Jishua smiled sweetly. "I think I can get a perfect score in math." "Excellent, that's my girl." The mother and daughter chatted and laughed as if no one else was around, then turned and walked away. Song Jiangwo shot me a glance and coldly dropped a line. "What are you standing there for, waiting for me to hail you a cab? Walk home yourself." Then he left too. I was left alone, standing under the scorching sun outside the examination hall. The bird's nest on my clothes was sticky and gave off a cloyingly sweet smell. Passers-by shot him strange looks, some laced with pity, others with disdain, and a few with the glee of onlookers enjoying someone else's misfortune. So this is the sister who's jealous of her younger sister. So it was her who spilled her sister's tonic. TSK, having an older sister like that really puts the younger one at a disadvantage. You look so miserable. No wonder your grades are poor. I clenched my fist, my nails digging into my palm, and it hurt, but I didn't cry. Tears are for the weak, and I am no longer that Songjiu who could be pushed around. I lifted my head to meet the sunlight. Once the college entrance exams are over, everything will be different. I've waited for this moment for far too long. I got home, and it was already 7 in the evening. The house was empty. Leftover food was set on the dining table. They really hadn't waited for me. I entered the room and closed the door. A note lay on the desk, written in Song Jishua's handwriting. "Hey sis, Mom and Dad are taking me out for steak. Make sure you study hard for tomorrow's exams. Okay, you've got this. Oh, and could you help me with this problem? I'm finding it a bit tricky." Beneath the note was a crumpled exam paper. It's a practice test she usually works on, mostly blank. She sure knows how to put on a show. I let out a cold laugh, crumpled the note into a ball, and tossed it into the trash. Then I opened the bottom drawer of the wardrobe. A neat stack of folders was arranged inside. I pulled one out and opened it. This contains all the evidence I've gathered over the past year. 20 original exam scratch papers, each one filled with my problem-solving steps. I deliberately kept the rough drafts from every exam because I had to prove every correct answer on those test papers was meticulously derived, word by word. And what about Song Jishua's draft paper? Clean and simple, with at most just a few formulas, because she didn't need to do any calculations at all. She just had to hear the answers from me and copy them down. I pulled out the second folder. Inside are screenshots and timestamps from the entryway surveillance footage. Yes, I installed a hidden camera in the foyer. From the very first day I was wronged. I knew that if I couldn't prove my innocence, I'd never be able to clear my name. So, for the past 6 months, every time Song Jishua put on a performance in front of me, the surveillance captured it, including this afternoon's bird's nest incident. I opened my phone and pulled up the surveillance footage from this afternoon. The image was crystal clear. Song Jishua unscrewed the cap herself, let go of it herself, and then screamed. It had nothing to do with me, but back then, no one was willing to hear my side of the story. I closed the drawer and walked over to sit down at the desk. On the computer screen was the score estimation page for the college entrance exam answers. I picked up a pen and, relying on memory, worked through all the problems I had done today. Once more. Math, estimated score 146. I intentionally skipped a key step. In the final part of the last major problem, Chinese, estimated score 135, scored 142 in English, Science Comprehensive, estimated score 287, total score 712, just as I expected, but that's just my true ability. Of course, I deliberately got a few of the easy questions wrong. Even if you're going to win, you can't win too perfectly. You've got to leave a little room for that underachiever persona. Why? Because I need Song Jishua to think she's won. I need her to walk right into my trap, completely unsuspecting. Then, at the height of her smugness, he laid out the evidence one by one right in front of her. A loud bang, the sound of the front door creaking open. Xiaoxua was amazing today. She estimated her math score at 145. I always said my daughter is a genius. My mom's laughter came from the living room, sharp and grating. Damn right. And who do you think she takes after? My dad's voice slurred with drink. Our Xiaoxua here is Ivy League material. Oh, Mom, Dad, stop embarrassing me. Song Jishua said in a coquettish tone, "Is my sister home yet? I brought her some cake." Cake? A weasel wishing a hen a happy new year. It's all a scheme. Bring her what? She spilled your bird's nest soup today and you still want to bring her cake. My mom's voice instantly turned icy. Let her go hungry, with that attitude of hers. Just see what score she'll get tomorrow. But, no buts. Go back to your room and get some sleep. You've got an important exam tomorrow. Don't let that loser get Two footsteps were heading toward my room. The door swung open. Song Jishua stood at the doorway, actually holding a small piece of cake in her hand, a sweet smile on her face. Hey sis, still up? I didn't say a word. She walked in, set the cake on my desk, and whispered, sis, about tomorrow's science section, you better think it through carefully. Her eyes sparkled as she said it, as if she were stating the most ordinary thing in the world. I knew exactly what she meant. She was telling me, I need to get every single answer for tomorrow's test. I looked up at her and smiled. All right, I'll give it some serious thought. Come up with an answer so powerful, you'll never forget it for the rest of your life. Song Jishua left with satisfaction. I closed the door, unlocked my phone, and glanced at the memo. Here is the schedule I've prepared. June 8th, the final day of the Gaokao, continuing to feed false answers. June 23rd, score release day, evidence goes public across the entire network. June 25th, School Reckoning Day. July 1st, Victory Banquet, the final showdown. July 5th, Departure, Rebirth. I've got every step planned out now. All that's left is to wait. I shut down my computer and lay down on the bed. Outside the window, the city lights flickered on and off. Tomorrow would be the final exam. It would also be the last day of Song Jishua's reign as the top student. I closed my eyes, a faint smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Good night, Song Jishua. See you tomorrow, 2:15. Days after the Gaokao, the house was eerily quiet. Song Jishua was busy posting her post-exam reflections online, giving interviews, and being hailed as the academic goddess by her juniors. Meanwhile, I was like a ghost, coming and going without a sound. No one asked how I did on the exam. No one asked if I had checked my answers. In their eyes, I was just a failure. The college entrance exam was merely a formality for me. On the evening of the 15th day, as I was reading in my room, a sudden cry rang out from the living room. Xiaoxue, you estimated a score of 680. My mom's voice was loud enough to raise the roof. I set the book down, walked to the door, and peered through the crack. In the living room, Song Jishua was being held by her mother, a modest yet smug smile on her face. Mom, I just took a rough guess based on the answers. Should be pretty close to 680. Oh my god. You're definitely getting into Tsinghua or Peking University, right? Xiaoxue really is something special. My dad was grinning from ear to ear. Results are out tomorrow. I think our family is about to produce a top scorer. Oh, maybe big sister did better than me on the test, Song Jishua said with feigned modesty. My mom snorted coldly. It's already impressive enough if she can get into a bachelor's program. Oh, right. She's checking her scores tomorrow too, isn't she? I'm curious to see what she got. Let's see if she's embarrassed or not. I closed the door and returned to my desk. I picked up my phone and glanced at the memo on the screen. Tomorrow, June 23 RD, results day. I opened the drawer and looked at the neatly arranged folders inside. Draft papers, surveillance screenshots, comparative tables of academic performance over the years. Each one is a labor of love. Each one is a weapon in my arsenal. I turned off the light. The real show begins tomorrow, 9 o'clock the next morning, in the living room. Hurry, hurry, turn on the computer. My mom urged my dad. The score-checking system is open. The family of three huddled around the computer, their faces a mix of tension and anticipation. I sat in the corner, waiting quietly. Mom, I'm so nervous, Song Jishua whispered, her face pale as she clutched her mother's hand. I have to admit, she was putting on a pretty convincing act. What are you nervous for? With 680 points, what's there to fear? My dad entered the admission ticket number. Come on, let's see how many points our top scholar scored. The loading spinner on the screen turned round and round. Song Jishua clenched her fists and took a deep breath. Standing behind her, I watched her tense back, a faint smile touching the corners of my mouth. You think you're going to see a 680 score? You're wrong. Loading complete. Grades pop up on the page. Song Jishua's pupils dilated abruptly. 32 points. Her voice seemed to be wrung from the depths of her throat. A stunned silence fell over the living room for a second. Impossible, my mom shrieked. The system must be broken. How could it be 32 points? Let me see, my dad pushed Song Jishua aside and refreshed the page again. The refreshed page showed the same score: Chinese, 12 points, mathematics, 4 points, English, 6 points, science composite, 10 points total, 32 points, provincial ranking, 89,528. From the bottom, the atmosphere in the living room felt as if it had frozen. Song Jishua's complexion shifted from pale to red, then to purple, and finally turned deathly white. Impossible, it can't be, she murmured to herself. But I got all the answers right, got them right. I lowered my gaze, hiding the chill in my eyes. What you got right was merely the correct answer you believed in, and what I gave you was a meticulously crafted trap. Song Jiu. My father suddenly turned his head, his bloodshot eyes fixed on me. Where's your exam admission ticket? Hand it over. I calmly took the exam admission ticket out of my pocket and handed it to him. He snatched it away and typed in my exam number. Song Jishua stared intently at the screen, her lips trembling. She's Probably still thinking about it. Even if I scored better than her, it wouldn't be by much after all. I am the bottom of the class. Older sister. Loading complete. The results page popped up. The living room fell silent once more, but this time, the silence was unnerving. Song Jiyu's report card, Chinese language, 138 points mathematics, 146 points English, 142 points science composite, 286 points total score, 712 points, ranked first in the province. My dad's hands were shaking. His hands were trembling uncontrollably. 712 points. The look on his face was incredibly complex when he said the number. Shock, disbelief, surprise, regret, all eventually twisted into a dazed blankness. My mom was completely stunned on the spot, her mouth wide open as if she could fit an egg inside. How is this possible? She wasn't supposed to be that bad at school, she muttered to herself, as if trying to convince herself it wasn't real. And my sister, the look on Song Jishua's face is something I will never forget for the rest of my life. Every trace of expression shattered in an instant on that sweet face. Her eyes widened, pupils contracting sharply, lips opening and closing, like a fish flung onto the shore. No, that's impossible. Her voice cracked, high-pitched and strained. You must have cheated. You copied my answers. You switched papers. She shot to her feet, pointed a finger right at my face, and shrieked hysterically. You stole my results, you despicable wretch, you took the top spot from me. I watched her screaming like a madwoman in the living room, feeling completely unmoved inside. Song Jishua swept the coffee table with a violent motion, sending cups and fruit bowls crashing to the floor. She grabbed a photo frame and smashed it against the ground, shards of glass flying everywhere. It's you. This is all your fault. You've ruined me. Then, like a madwoman, she lunged at me. I didn't move. Just before she could reach me, my dad grabbed her arm. That's enough, my dad bellowed. He looked at me, and his expression grew intensely complex, a mix of shock, ingratiation, and an indescribable, unsettling greed. Jiu, his tone suddenly softened, so gentle it made me sick. Is this score actually yours? I didn't say a word, just pulled out a USB drive and plugged it into the TV. What is this? My mom frowned. Evidence. I opened the first folder. Inside were high-resolution scans of sheets of scratch paper. On the left were my notes. Each page was densely covered with deconstruction steps, forming what I had deliberately constructed as a chain of flawed reasoning, a derivation that appeared rigorous, yet each step subtly veered away from the correct answer. To the right is a scanned copy of Song Jishua's answer sheet. The answers in the response section are identical, word for word, to the fake answers on my scratch paper. Final comparison chart. Song Jishua's answer sheet versus my rough draft. Fake answers, match rate, 100%. My draft fake answer versus the official answer, error rate, 100%. In other words, she copied word for word the set of wrong answers I had carefully designed, not a single word off. The living room fell into dead silence once more. My parents stared at the shocking comparison on the screen, their faces looking as if they just swallowed a fly. What does this even prove? My mother tried to argue stubbornly. Maybe it's just a coincidence. I smiled and opened the second folder. This is surveillance footage. The scene shows the entryway of a home. The timestamp indicates the afternoon of the first day of the National College entrance exams. In the video, Song Jishue is holding a jar of bird's nest and walks up to me. Then, she unscrewed the cap herself, glanced around, and deliberately let go. Clatter. The bottle fell to the floor. She shrieked. Sis, what are you doing? I turned my head and looked at Song Jishue, whose face was deathly pale. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Song? Jishua trembled all over, her lips quivering, when she suddenly let out a scream and lunged forward, trying to snatch the USB drive from my hand. Give it to me. That's fake. You're framing me. I sidestepped, and she missed her target, crashing to the ground. Dad, Mom, she's framing me. Don't believe her. She was sitting on the ground, hugging my mom's legs, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm your daughter. She did it on purpose. She's been jealous of me since childhood. She wishes I were dead. My mother's expression shifted slightly. Her gaze darted back and forth between me and Song Jishua before finally settling on her. Well, Jiu, my mother licked her lips. Your sister is still young. She doesn't know any better. Let's just forget about this evidence. I smiled. I saw this coming. It's not the first time. Every single time. The moment Song Jishua started crying, she would be forgiven. And I will always be the immature older sister. But this time, it was different. I took out my phone and press 3 digits, 1-1-0. Hello, I need to report a crime. Someone is slandering me and stealing my personal property. Surveillance footage proves it all. The address is Unit 2, Apartment 3-5, VUN Residential Complex. After hanging up the phone, I looked at the stunned family. Justice will be served through the law. Half an hour later, the police arrived at the door. They inquired about the situation, examined the evidence, and explained the legal consequences of defamation to Song Jishue. Song Jishua was terrified, shrinking into a corner and not daring to utter a single word. As for my parents, faced with the police, they finally dropped their arrogant act, bowing and scraping while saying, "The child didn't know any better." After the police left, the living room was in complete disarray. I picked up the USB drive and turned to walk toward my room. From behind me came my mother's voice, thick with resentment. That top scholar title of yours, how much money can it get you?" I stopped in my tracks and didn't look back. This is my home. A mother who asks, how much is a top scholar worth? A father who changed his attitude in an instant, and a sister who seemed to want nothing more than to destroy me. This isn't my home, it's just a place I'm about to leave. I walked into the room, closed the door, and turned on my phone. The school forum has gone wild. Hashtag Songjiu scores 712. Tops provincial science stream. Hashtag Songjishua scores 32. Hashtag the perfect student image crumbles. The top 3 trending topics were all about them as I scrolled through the comments. The smile on my lips grew wider. The number 1 trending spot was the comment section of my help-seeking post. The very same netizens who had once hurled insults at me were now all saying, "I'm so sorry, sis, I was wrong about you. What an incredible plot twist." I set my phone aside and closed my eyes. This is just the first step. See you at school tomorrow. 3. On the night the scores were released, the hashtags Songjiu 712 points provincial science top scorer and hashtag Songjishua 32 points completely dominated the trending charts. Public opinion is swirling faster than I expected. It all started on the first day of the Gaokao, when someone posted a thread on the school forum, exposing the malicious sister who resents her younger sister. The content was all pre-prepared dirt by Song Jishue. Her sister had poor grades, envied her younger sister, and even sabotaged her intentionally during exams. Paired with her sweet selfie, the comment section was filled with sympathy. Poor little sister, stuck with a sister like that. Having a sister like that is worse than having none at all. I hope my sister gets into a good university and gets away from this toxic family. The top comment was, "My heart breaks for the younger sister. The older sister should just get out of this house." I read that comment and couldn't help but smile. The comment section these days is completely unrecognizable. My truth video was uploaded to major platforms the night before the scores were released, scheduled to go live automatically. The video content is divided into 3 parts. Part 1, my academic performance chart over the past year. 2 lines are clearly shown on the graph. The blue line represents my actual scores on each unified exam, consistently ranging between 680 and 710. The red marks represent Song Jishua's scores, which almost perfectly overlap with mine, but I deliberately pointed out a detail in the video. After every major exam, I would deliberately flunk a monthly exam just to play along. And whenever I bombed a monthly exam, Song Jishua's grades would plummet right along with mine, because the most ridiculous thing in this world is that she can't even measure up to my fake grades. The comment section is already losing it, so the younger sister has been copying the older sister's answers all along. No wonder she always scored a few points lower than her sister on the monthly exams. Was it because her sister wasn't even trying? So this is the legendary, the alpha stays the alpha. The second part is a chart showing the changes in Song Jishua's and my academic rankings over the years. In middle school, I consistently ranked within the top 10 of my grade. However, starting from the first year of high school, my ranking suddenly plummeted to the bottom of the class. Meanwhile, Song Jishua emerged like a dark horse, consistently securing the top spot in the grade every time. In the video, I didn't explain anything, I just laid out the timeline. The comment section is blowing up again. Wait, so the older sister was a top student before 10th grade, why the sudden drop? And the younger sister was a slacker before 10th grade, what caused the turnaround? The timing is just too coincidental. I have a bold theory. I closed the third part of the video, that was my trump card, which I had planned to release around the time of the victory celebration. It's not the right time yet. Just the first 2 parts were enough to publicly shame Song Jishue. Hashtag Song Jishue. Plagiarism. Hashtag tops trending search, and those old posts criticizing me were dug up again, with the comment sections now uniformly filled with, "I'm so sorry, sis, I was wrong about you. Where are the people who were insulting her earlier? Come out and apologize." This is a textbook example of a plot twist and a total face slap. I scrolled through my private messages, most of them were apologies, with a few from journalists wanting to interview me, but one private message made me pause for a moment. Sender, MS, Lee from the Peking University Admissions Office. Content, hello, Songjiu, I am MS, Lee from the Peking University Admissions Office. Congratulations on ranking first in science across the province. Would it be convenient to schedule a time to chat? We offer all the majors available at Yuanpei College, along with full scholarships immediately. Another new message popped up. Sender, Mr. Zhang, Tsinghua University Admissions Office. Hello Songjiu, this is the Deputy Director of Tsinghua University's admissions office. First of all, congratulations on your outstanding score of 712. We would be delighted to welcome you to either the Yao class or the Ji class, and we can offer you the highest tier of scholarship that amounts to 80,000 renminbi per year, or 320,000 renminbi over 4 years. Additionally, You would receive priority consideration for Tsinghua's special scholarship. Would you be available to meet and discuss this further? A faint smile touched my lips as I read the two messages. The person I'd been waiting for had finally arrived. The next morning, when my homeroom teacher, Mr. Chen, stood at my doorstep, his expression was as complicated as if he'd eaten an entire plate of wasabi. Jiu, dear, your teacher has come to see you. He was carrying fruit and a cake, his smile uglier than a cry. I remember him saying at the parent-teacher meeting that I had attitude issues with studying. I remember he gave the recommendation slot for direct admission to Song Jishui. The letter of recommendation describes them as a student of excellent character and academic achievement, who respects teachers and upholds tradition. I remember the look of exasperated disappointment he gave me when we passed in the hallway, and now, he was standing at my doorstep with a fruitcake in hand, beaming from ear to ear. You're too kind, Teacher Chen, I said nonchalantly. Oh, don't mention it, really. He quickly shoved the item into my hands. The teacher was a bit strict with you back then, but it was all for your own good. Look at you now, top science scorer in the whole province. Your teacher is so proud. I looked at him without saying a word. His smile faltered for a moment, then quickly returned. Where's Jishui? He asked tentatively. In the room, I said. Probably not in the mood for company. Oh, well, the homeroom teacher rubbed his hands together, looking a bit flustered. The teacher thinks there might be some misunderstanding. Jishui is usually such a well-behaved girl. Could there be some mix-up? I looked at him and smiled softly. Mr. Chen, do you want me to play the surveillance footage for you in person? His face instantly went through a whole spectrum of expressions. No need. He waved his hands awkwardly. The teacher was just talking about the letter of recommendation. He pulled out an envelope and tore it in half right in front of me. This was the recommendation letter for Jishui. The teacher has already torn it up. The teacher was deceived by her back then. I had no idea she was that kind of person. Don't worry, the school fully supports you. I nodded without saying a word. After seeing my homeroom teacher off, I stood by the window and watched his figure disappear around the street corner. Another fair-weather friend, but it doesn't matter anymore. These people will no longer be a part of my life. In the afternoon, admission officers from Tsinghua and Peking University arrived almost at the same time. As soon as my parents heard that people from Tsinghua and Peking University were coming, they instantly put on a level of enthusiasm they'd never shown before. Oh my, you must be exhausted. Teacher, please, have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. My mother beamed, her eyes crinkling into happy crescents. Arjiu has always been exceptional since she was little. I just knew she'd get great grades on her exams. I looked at my mom's expression and felt not the slightest ripple in my heart. Professor Zhang from Tsinghua spoke first. Songjiu, both the Yao class and the Ji class at Tsinghua University warmly welcome you. You're free to choose your major based on your interests. Regarding scholarships, in addition to the annual university scholarship of 80,000 yuan, we can also assist you in applying for corporate-sponsored scholarships. It can reach up to 150,000 per year. Professor Li from Peking University immediately chimed in. Song, at our Yuanpei College, we offer complete freedom in choosing your major, as well as priority access to international exchange programs. Regarding scholarships, we can provide a full 4-year tuition waiver plus a living stipend, totaling no less than 500,000 yuan. Before I could even say a word, my father couldn't wait any longer and jumped in. Teacher, if Arjiu attends your school, this scholarship, is it given as a lump sum? Both Teacher Zhang and Teacher Li were taken aback for a moment. Well, it's distributed on an annual basis. Oh, my father's expression turned somewhat disappointed. So what about this child's future tuition and living expenses? Don't worry about these, Teacher Zhang said. Tsinghua covers full accommodation and meals, plus offers scholarships and part-time work opportunities. That's great, really great. My mom's eyes darted around. Professor, there's one more thing I wanted to ask. She glanced at me and lowered her voice. We have another daughter at home. She also took the college entrance exam this year and didn't do very well. Is it possible to let her go to Tsinghua with her older sister, even if it's just to audit the classes? We're willing to pay extra. The expressions on both Teacher Zhang's and Teacher Li's faces froze at the same time. I took a deep breath and put an end to the farce. No, thank you. All eyes were on me. I won't give a single cent of my scholarship to this family. I'll choose my own school. Song Jishua's future is none of my concern. My mother's face instantly changed. How can you be so selfish? Look what you've done to your sister, and you're just going to abandon her. You're her older sister, and where were you when she was hurting me? I looked at her and asked calmly. My mother opened her mouth, but no words came out. You've been biased to the bone since you were little. She stole my answers, and you call her clever. She took my stuff, and you say she's just being childish. She framed me, and you want me to just let it slide. I looked at my mother, then at my father, and said slowly and deliberately, no, I'll let Her experience what fairness really means. I pulled my phone from my pocket and played a recording. It was my father's voice on the recording. What's the point of a girl reading so many books? You'll just end up getting married anyway. If you go to Tsinghua, how much money will that cost the family over 4 years? Think about it. If you really want to go, you'll have to send 2,000 yuan home every month, and after you graduate, pay an annual allowance of 200,000, otherwise. Just forget it. My mom's voice can also be heard agreeing in the recording. Exactly. After raising you this far, you can't just walk away, can you? Besides, your sister still has her education ahead of her. You need to lend a hand. Recording playback complete. The living room was deathly silent. Teacher Zhang's expression shifted from shock to seriousness. Mr. Li's eyes were filled with compassion. My parents' faces flushed and paled in turns, as if someone had slapped them in public. I turned off the recording and looked at them. Mom, Dad, I will never forget the 18 years of love and care you've given me. You paid for my high school education, tuition, living expenses, every single cent. I haven't forgotten a thing. Once I start working, I'll support you both according to the legal requirements. 1,000 a month should cover your food. As for everything else, I opened my phone and sent a message in the family group chat. Song Jiu, hereby formally sever all family ties with the song. Family, effective immediately. From this moment on, life, aging, sickness, and death, none of them concern each other anymore. The family group chat exploded the moment the message was sent. Aunts and cousins from all sides suddenly came forward. Jiu, what are you doing? We're still family. After all, how could you behave like this? I turned off my phone and looked up at the two teachers, Mr. Zhang, Ms. Li. I'm sorry you had to see that. My target is Tsinghua's Yao class. We can discuss the specifics separately. Teacher Zhang quickly nodded. Sure, no problem at all. Though a little disappointed, Teacher Li smiled and said, the Yao class at Tsinghua is truly a perfect fit for you. Congratulations. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. After seeing the two teachers off, I turned and went back to my room. As I passed by Song Jishua's room, I heard the sound of muffled sobbing and things being smashed inside. I did not linger. She had it coming. I closed the door and opened my email. The school sent a notice about the celebration. July 1st, 2 p.m., in the auditorium. I looked at the screen, a faint smile curling at the corner of my mouth. A celebration. Song Jishua, you'll definitely come, won't you? I have the final gift ready for July 1st. Sunny, at the entrance to the school auditorium, a red banner stood out prominently. Warmest congratulations to our student Song Ji for achieving the top score in the provincial science stream. I stared at the banner, feeling a little dazed. 3 days ago, the name up there was still Song Jishua. The school was preparing a celebration for her 680 points, but before the banners could even be changed, her top student image had already crumbled. Now the name has been changed to me. She went from being the prodigy girl to a plagiarism dog. I entered the auditorium. The room was already packed with people, school administrators, teachers, student representatives, and some reporters who had rushed in upon hearing the news. I glanced through the crowd but didn't see Song Jishua, but I have a feeling she'll definitely show up. Given her nature, she could never stand by and watch me bask in the spotlight, enjoying the glory that should have been hers, even if that glory was never truly hers to begin with. Classmate Xiu, over here, over here. The principal came forward to greet me personally, his face beaming with a smile as bright as if his own daughter had topped the imperial examinations. Come, take a seat in the front row. You'll be giving a speech on stage shortly. Are you all prepared? I'm ready, I replied with a nod, satisfied. The principal gave my shoulder a pat before turning to attend to the other guests. I took a seat in the front row, my gaze sweeping across every corner of the auditorium, and then I saw someone there. In the corner of the auditorium's second floor was a figure wearing a baseball cap. Even though I couldn't make out the face, I recognized her instantly, from her silhouette and the aura of suppressed anger radiating from her. Song Jishua, you really came. The principal gave a speech, the homeroom teacher made remarks, and a student representative presented flowers. The ceremony proceeded in its orderly, preordained sequence. It wasn't until the host announced, next, let's welcome our top scorer, Song Jiu. Please come to the stage and give your speech. I stood up and walked to the podium. A wave of enthusiastic applause rose from the audience, but before I could even utter a word, she cheated. A sharp scream pierced the air of the auditorium. All eyes turned toward the source of the sound, the entrance. Song Jishua stormed in with long, determined strides. She was wearing a soiled white dress, her hair disheveled, her eyes were red and swollen, and she looked like she'd just escaped from a psychiatric hospital, yet her gaze was unnervingly bright. It was the kind of madness that teeters on the edge of total collapse. Song Jiu cheated, she cheated, she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me on the Stage, you've all been deceived by her. She doesn't deserve to be the top scholar. The auditorium erupted into chaos in an instant. The reporters' cameras all swiveled to focus on Song Jishue. The students whispered among themselves, and some pulled out their phones to start recording. The principal's face turned as dark as thunder. Song Jishue, this is the school's celebration. Please do not cause a disturbance. The principal said sternly. Cause a disturbance, Song Jishue sneered. I'm exposing the truth. You've all been fooled by this bitch. She copied my answers. She stole my grades. Do you have any proof? A cool, detached voice cut her off. All eyes turned back to the stage, holding the microphone. I looked calmly at Song Jishue. You accused me of copying your answer. Do you have any proof? Song Jishue was taken aback for a moment, then said through gritted teeth, of course I have proof. We were in the same exam hall, and she was sitting right in front of me. I saw her copying my answers with my own eyes. Oh, I tilted my head. Then how come your total score is only 32, while I got 712? Laughter rippled through the audience. Song Jishue's face flushed crimson. That's because you copied my answers. You copied all my answers. That's why I failed the exam. So, you're saying the top science student in the province copied their answers from someone who scored a 32? I asked again. My tone as casual as if we were discussing the weather, but the more she acted this way, the more ridiculous she appeared. The laughter from the audience grew even louder. Song Jishue's face flushed red, then turned pale, and finally a sickly purple. She stared daggers at me, her eyes brimming with hatred. None of you believe me. Her voice trembled as she looked around. You've all been fooled by her. She's a liar. She's been pretending this whole time. She suddenly pulled her phone from her pocket and held it high. I have proof. I have her chat logs. She said it herself. She said she hates me, that she wishes I were dead. She's been scheming against me this whole time. I saw the WeChat chat interface displayed on her phone screen. That's my old phone. She borrowed it from me back then and never gave it back. I looked at her and suddenly smiled. Song Jishue, since you're here, I don't mind showing you what real evidence looks like. I pressed the remote on the large screen at the front of the auditorium. A video began to play. The scene in the video shows Song Jishue chatting with her best friend at a milk tea shop. In the scene, Song Jishue is proudly boasting to her best friend, you wouldn't believe it, my sister, that idiot, always seriously tries to think up answers for me during exams, thought I was actually studying seriously, haha. I'm dying, she's my go-to answer machine, whatever I say, she does it. Once she's no longer useful, I'll kick her out of this house. The auditorium erupted in an uproar. Song Jishue's face turned deathly pale in an instant. No, that's impossible. Where did this video even come from? I stood on stage, staring at Song Jishue's shattered expression, and said slowly, word by word, you call me your answer machine. Yeah, over the past year, you've definitely been using me. You obtained answers from me through means I was unaware of, and now you're basking in the glory that isn't rightfully yours. But, my voice suddenly rose, you think you've won. You think you control everything. You're wrong. Every answer I gave you was a carefully laid trap. Every option you copied down was a wrong answer I had calculated in my mind 1,000 times before giving it to you. You think you're using me? I looked at her and smiled. Actually, I'm the one using you. I've spent the entire past year setting up this elaborate scheme, and today is the moment you walk right into the trap. The auditorium was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned by those words. Song Jishue froze in place, her eyes wide open, her lips trembling. What did you say? I said. I locked eyes with her and said slowly, every word deliberate. All those answers you stole were deliberately fabricated by me to harm you. The more you copy, the worse your fate, and you, of all people, managed to copy a perfect score. Song Jishue stood frozen in place, as if struck by lightning. Her expression cycled through shock, disbelief, rage, and finally madness in a matter of seconds. She let out a scream, threw her phone aside, and charged straight at me. I'll kill you. But before she could charge onto the stage, security guards stopped her. She struggled and thrashed about like a wild beast, and right at that moment, another surprise made its appearance. In the audience, a girl held up her phone and mirrored its screen onto the big display. That's another chat log between Song Jishue and her best friend. The content consists of only one sentence. She's just a candy machine. Once I'm done using her, I'll toss her aside. Sent 3 days before the college entrance exams, and the recipient was the school's most notorious gossip. The leak of this chat log shattered Song Jishue's last shred of dignity. The auditorium erupted in an uproar. Oh my god, she's still saying things like that. That's just cruel. Is this even human? Song Jishue felt as if all her strength had been drained away in that instant. She slumped to the ground, her face smeared with tears and snot, muttering to herself, what do you know? You don't understand anything. The principal stood up, his expression grave, and announced, Song Jishue, due to your severe violation of school rules and regulations, the administration has decided to formally expel you. No, please, no. Song Jishue struggled to stand, but her legs gave way, and she slumped back to the ground. You can't expel me. What right do you have? No one paid any attention to her pleas. Just then, my parents burst into the auditorium. My mom grabbed Song Jishue by the hair and slapped her hard across the face. You little wretch, you've brought nothing but shame on our entire family. My father also stepped forward and kicked her, causing her to curl up on the ground. Get lost. I don't have a daughter like you. I watched the scene unfold, my heart unmoved. That's their kind of love. It's not about who you are, but what you can offer. If she brings honor to Song Jishue, she's the cherished daughter. If she causes shame, she's nothing more than a burden to be cast aside. I turned around and walked down from the podium. No one noticed my departure. All eyes were fixed on the farce unfolding at the center of the auditorium. I stepped outside the auditorium into the bright sunshine. My phone buzzed for a second. I opened it to find a message from Professor Zhang at Tsinghua University. Student Song, the green channel is now open. You can enroll normally even without the admission notice. And you may come tomorrow to complete the procedures. Your dorm is all set. It's a single apartment with no housing fees. Would you like help arranging transportation? I replied, okay, thank you, Teacher Zhang. I've already bought the train ticket. Then I opened the ticket booking app to confirm my high-speed rail ticket for tomorrow. However, that's just a smokescreen. My actual train ticket is for the one leaving for Beijing just before 5 in the afternoon. I turned off my phone and looked up at the sky. The sunlight was a bit glaring, but this was the first time I truly saw the light. I glanced down at the time on my phone. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 hours left. I should head back to pack my bags. This time, I won't look back. 5:00 p.m. The high-speed rail station, with a backpack on my shoulders and a small suitcase in tow. I stood before the station entrance. My backpack holds my most important possessions, a USB drive, my university acceptance letter, a few changes of clothes, and a bank card. The card has over 30,000 yuan saved up from 3 years of secret tutoring gigs in high school. It's enough for my initial living expenses in Beijing, the clothes in the wardrobe, the books on the desk, the photo frame on the nightstand. I didn't take any of it. None of those things belong to me. They belong to the eldest daughter of the Song family. From today onward, I am just Song Jiu, an ordinary person about to start a new life. I looked at the electronic display at the high-speed rail station to confirm the train number G102, 1658, bound for Beijing South Station, but the ticket I bought is not for this train. I bought it on the ticket app. It's for another train at 17:30. I accidentally left the ticket booking page open on my home computer using that information, and Song Jishue happened to see it. Given her personality, she's bound to tell my parents. Given my parents' personalities, they're definitely going to come and corner me. But the train I'm actually waiting for is this one at 16:58. I left 2 hours early, just to avoid them, just as I thought, just as I was about to scan my ID to enter the station. I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure out of the corner of my eye. My mother. She was holding up a piece of cardboard, with a few large, scrawled characters written on it in marker. Ungrateful daughter Songjiu, you have forgotten our kindness and abandoned your parents. She and my father stood on either side of the station entrance, like a pair of door gods. A crowd of onlookers had already gathered, with some pulling out their phones to record. I frowned. I had still underestimated just how shameless they could be. My mother spotted me immediately, rushing over to grab my suitcase, trying to run away. You think just because you got into a top university you can leave, you ungrateful child. Let go. I won't, she cried, clutching the suitcase desperately as she began to sob uncontrollably. Everyone, come and see, my own daughter, who I raised with such hardship, gets into Tsinghua and now she wants to disown her parents. People around started whispering and pointing. I watched my mom's performance, but I felt nothing inside. I knew she'd pull something like this. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and played an audio clip. It was my mom's voice on the phone in the living room yesterday. Listen, if that girl dares to go to Beijing alone, I'll be at the station to stop her. I'll make sure everyone knows what an ungrateful daughter she is. Let's see if she still has the nerve to go to school. The voice on the other end, that doesn't seem right, does it? What's so bad about it? She's my daughter. Everything about her belongs to me. If she doesn't give me that money, she's not going anywhere. Audio playback complete. The passers-by fell silent. My mom's face turned deathly pale in an instant. You're recording, Mom. You taught me that. Always keep something back. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. You think I'd give you another chance to smear me? At that moment, the station security guard approached. Ma'am, please let go of this passenger's luggage to avoid disrupting the station order. My mother clung desperately to the suitcase, shouting, "She's my daughter, you have no right to interfere." The security guard looked at me. "Excuse me, sir, do you know her?" "Yes," I nodded. "She's my mother, but I'm an adult now. I want to go to university in Beijing, and she doesn't agree. That's why she's making a scene here." The security guard frowned and then looked over at my father. He stood there holding the sign that read "Unfilial Daughter," his expression fierce, yet he didn't dare utter a word. "Ma'am, if you continue like this, we'll have to call the police," the security guard said sternly. The moment my mom heard "call the police," she let go instantly. Of course she's afraid of the police. She still hasn't forgotten the last time the police came by to lecture her. You just wait." She jabbed her finger at my nose and hissed, "You'll regret this. You absolutely will." I looked at her and said calmly, "Mom, this is the last time I'll call you that. I've paid back everything you gave me over these 18 years. From now on, we're even." With that, I turned and walked towards the station entrance. My mom's hysterical screams rang out from behind me. "Songjiu, I hope you die a horrible death. You'll get what's coming to you." I didn't look back. I swiped my ID card and walked onto the platform. Just as I was about to board the train, a sudden commotion erupted behind me. "They're fighting. Someone's fighting." I turned around and saw a large crowd gathered by the station entrance. Through a gap in the crowd, I saw my father and my mother, locked in a struggle. The reason, I suppose, was this: my mother blamed me for not stopping our daughter, while my father blamed her for not getting the money. They pointed fingers at each other, their argument escalating until it finally turned physical. My mother clawed at my father's face, and he grabbed her by the hair. They tore into each other like a pair of rabid dogs. Some bystanders tried to break up the fight, others filmed it on their phones, and someone called the police. Watching that whole spectacle, I suddenly laughed, turning on each other. "All for money. These are my parents, but I won't feel sorry for them anymore. They have nothing to do with me now." I turned and boarded the train. The moment the doors closed, the world fell silent. I found my seat. It was by the window, with a view of the outside. The train slowly pulled away, and the scenery outside the window began to recede, leaving the city, leaving that house, leave those who hurt me behind. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. It was finally over. Several months later, at Tsinghua University, October in Beijing, with its crisp, clear autumn air, I'm sitting in a bright lab, watching lines of code run smoothly on the computer screen in front of me. "Jiu, your program is running," exclaimed the senior student beside him. "Wow, you're amazing. Finished the whole project in just 2 months of school." I smiled. "Not bad. Thanks to my senior's guidance." "No way, you're a natural." The senior gave a thumbs up. "By the way, that article from your interview with the school paper got shared by a ton of people." "Interview? Oh, right. Now I remember. It was the first week of school when a campus reporter approached me, saying they wanted to interview the top-ranking freshman. Back then, I said, they can copy the answers, but they can't copy what's in your head." This statement was later posted by the university's official social media account, garnering over 100,000 shares. Lots of people left comments. "I've got that down. Sis is so cool. Now that's what I call a true academic ace." I closed the code editor and opened my phone. There's an unread message on WeChat from an old classmate. It's a video with the caption, "Look, Jiu, this is what Song Jishua has become now." I tapped to open the video. The scene shows the messy kitchen of a small, grimy restaurant. Song Jishua stood at the sink washing dishes. Wearing a greasy apron, she had lost a great deal of weight. Her complexion was sallow, her hair was tied back carelessly, and she looked utterly wretched. The restaurant owner cursed behind her. "Hurry up, can't even clean a plate properly. What good are you?" Song Jishua lowered her head, silent, and quickened her movements. I finished watching the video and put my phone down. No pity, no schadenfreude. It's just very calm. I heard she couldn't repeat her grade because she's on the integrity blacklist, and no school is willing to accept her. She tried many jobs, but each time her college entrance exam integrity issue came to light, she was let go. In the end, she could only scrape by doing odd jobs in a small restaurant like this. As for my parents, the video of them brawling at the train station went viral online, making them the laughingstock of the entire area. Later they came to see me once, saying they wanted to make up and asked me to wire them money every month. I informed them that I had filed a declaration of adult independence with the court, and they have no right to interfere in my life. If they keep harassing me, I'll apply for a protective order. After that, they never came to see me again. I turned off my phone and looked back at the computer screen. Sunlight from outside the window filtered through the slats of the blinds, scattering golden patches across the desk. Fingers on the keyboard typed the final line of code. Compilation complete. Program executed successfully. A green notification box popped up on the screen. The students in the lab erupted in cheers. "Jiu is the goat. You're definitely buying today. Let's go." Third floor of the cafeteria, my treat. I was surrounded by everyone as I walked out of the lab, walking along the tree-lined path on campus. Sunlight filtered through the leaves and fell upon me. The autumn breeze is gentle, carrying the fragrance of osmanthus flowers. I looked up at the clouds and thought of myself from a few Months ago, the version of me trembling in the exam hall, the one abandoned by my entire family, the one who spent late nights repeatedly sorting through evidence and planning for the future, those days are finally over. I smiled to myself and quickened my pace. Wait for me, what's for lunch? Hot pot, and you're buying. Hey, you're the one who said you'd treat. Their laughter echoed across the campus. I glanced back at the path I'd come from. The sun is shining just right, the breeze is gentle. And my future is just getting started. The end. Story 2. We slapped each other silly before tumbling off the 30th floor to our deaths. After being reborn, we both became ridiculously cunning. I installed 80 cameras, and she brought 50 voice recorders, in public and private. Our words were sweeter than honey, but when we fought, we moved faster than snipers, terrified of giving the other any leverage later. Our parents brought home another girl and claimed she was their biological daughter. While neither of us were, the girl looked shocked and blurted out, "How are both of you still alive?" Me and the fake heiress. I quietly swallowed the peanut powder that would trigger her allergy. She managed to talk down the master, who was screaming that I was an evil spirit and must be executed by 1,000 cuts. Well, now that the mastermind is here, don't even think about leaving me one. When I was reborn, my face still ached from the lingering pain of 89 slaps. The sound of them cracking against my skin echoed in my ears, and I couldn't help but shudder. Across from me, the fake heiress Freya was also covering her face with a complicated expression. We were standing right outside the door of a luxurious hotel room, and inside that room lay the man we both had feelings for, young Master Dylan from the Dylan family, moaning in discomfort from the effects of some drug. It instantly hit me that I had been reborn, and I was certain Freya facing me had been reborn as well. In our previous life, she'd have dragged me by the hair and swung me around like one used crescent blade just to burst into that room and help Dylan with the antidote. Yet here we both are, planted at the hotel entrance, refusing to enter, putting on this nauseating display of false courtesy with perfect synchronization. After you, dear sister. 2. In our past life, Freya and I both drugged Dylan and stole his keycard in a desperate attempt to sneak into his bed, each hoping to become his fiancé. Yet we ended up running into each other right at the hotel entrance. We got into a vicious catfight over who would go in and cure him, while Dylan was already clawing at the door in agony. After we'd both lost most of our hair and dignity, we finally squeezed through the door together. The door slammed shut, followed by Dylan's agonized scream. Then Dylan's mother showed up at our door, demanding I become the primary wife and Freya the secondary. My father was so furious he nearly had a heart attack. Pointing at them, he yelled, "What era do you think this is? How dare you talk about primary and secondary wives?" Dylan's mother remained completely unruffled, sitting there with utter composure. "Well, whose fault is it that both your daughters climbed into my son's bed? When he tried to escape, they dragged him back and threw him onto the mattress." His masculine pride was utterly shattered. Just as my father was about to say more, we both spoke in unison, "Deal," because at that moment, Freya and I were so fiercely competitive that we completely disregarded any sense of shame, embarrassment, or personal dignity. There was only one word echoing in both our minds: victory. But now, neither of us is willing to step inside, haunted by the brutal lessons from our past life. 3. It wasn't some sudden awakening after rebirth. In our previous life, we suffered terribly at Dylan's hands. We both followed Dylan for 5 years without ever gaining proper status. She had 3 children, 2 died, 1 from leukemia, while I had 4 miscarriages and can no longer conceive. She'd walk with 1 child in her arms, another on her back, and a third clinging to her leg. In the end, only the one hanging onto her leg survived. My complexion was sallow, my frame gaunt. One day when I ventured out in a gale, I was thrown to the ground and couldn't get back up. Despite being pushed to our limits, we both gritted our teeth, determined to outdo the other and living well. On the very day Dylan decided to publicly announce his engagement, we were on the rooftop in a final showdown over who would attend the banquet. We tumbled down together, landing right at Dylan's feet. Screams erupted around us, but Dylan paid them no mind. Beside his expensive custom-made leather shoes stood a pair of delicate, pale feet in diamond-encrusted high heels. My blood splattered on those beautiful high heels. The owner of the high heels took a few steps back, her feet intertwining with Dylan's as they must have embraced. "Dylan, they're really dead. I'm so scared. Don't be afraid. After we're married, I'll always protect you." So he's been toying with us for 5 years, and now he's moved on to someone new, and by the sound of it, they weren't even surprised we died. Then I blacked out. Next thing I knew, I was reborn. I'm done with Dylan. I'd rather entertain myself than let him have his fun with me. I took a quiet step back. "After you, little sister." Freya crossed her arms, her short hair looking sharp as she narrowed her peach blossom eyes. "Didn't you say I always try to steal everything from you? Well, this time I'm letting you have it." Before she could finish, I spun around and bolted, not one to be outdone. She darted after me, shouting as she ran, "Are you trying to show off that you're faster than me? That's not what I meant. Stay away from me. Get in there. Get inside. No, you go right now. Go 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 go." We roared and ran like a thundering herd of 10,000 horses, covering the distance from the hotel to the street corner 2,000 meters away in just 3 minutes before disappearing from sight. From the distant hotel came the sound of an ambulance siren, mixed with a man's agonized wail. Young Master Dylan kissed me, and I'm a 190 centimeters tall, 250-pound grown man. For when Freya and I got home, my mom was all dressed up and ready to head out. Seeing us drenched in sweat as we rushed in, she looked puzzled and said, "Why are you two still here, trying to see who can be later?" That might sound odd, but it really isn't, because from the moment I stepped through the door, we'd already slipped into our usual competitive mode. We're not trying to one-up each other, just feels wrong. On my first day back, she tumbled down the stairs, but it didn't throw me off, because I ended up tumbling right after her, in the ambulance. Every time she coughed up blood I'd faint, every time she had a seizure I'd scream. That day was pure chaos. Our parents kept rushing from her hospital bed to mine and back again. The look in our eyes told each other everything. Neither of us was going to make this easy. We competed over everything: height, weight, whose hair was longer, who had more clothes, who stepped out the door first, even who took up more space lying in bed. So honestly, my mom had every reason to suspect we were still at it. The moment I saw my mom, my fighting spirit ignited again. I leaped up to grab the teapot in the living room, while she kicked off her high heels and dashed into the kitchen. I rushed toward my mom holding steaming floral tea with a scalded arm, while she hurried over clutching sliced fruit with a cut finger. "Mom, have some tea fruit." My mom was completely stunned by us. She silently stood up and bolted away in a flash. Can't really blame her though. The last guy who tried to break up our fight is still in the hospital. 5. After being reborn, I decided to cut all ties with Dylan, but I'm definitely keeping my parents. Freya won't get a single cent of the Shao family fortune. That's why I had to plan for the long term. For instance, Freya would often bring something into my room and say in a sickly sweet voice, "Sis, I'm coming in, I brought you something delicious, let's eat together." But the moment the door closed, her face would turn cold, she'd devour everything in her hands and then scream while smashing the plate. By the time Mom and Dad came in, she'd be crying pitifully. Sis said I'm not worthy of eating with her. She ate everything and then hit me in the face with the plate. Then my dad would beat me severely. "Your sister acts so humble around you, and you still dare to bully her. Have you no heart?" I sneered coldly. If I let her get away with it this time, my rebirth would have been for nothing. On the first day after my rebirth, I installed 80 cameras in my room. That evening, while everyone was happily having dinner together, Freya pulled her old trick again, carrying a plate into my room. The moment she stepped in, she froze. "What's this? Stargazing in here." The whole room's dotted with red lights. "Couldn't you spring for a few hidden ones? Are you really that broke?" I scoffed. "You're not worth my..." Then I shut my mouth warily, because Freya could no longer suppress the smirk tugging at her lips. "She's definitely up to something." I immediately pounced and pinned her down. After several minutes of struggling, I managed to tear off her camisole and found a recording device. "How could you do this to me, sis?" I whimpered pitifully into the recorder. "You tore your own clothes and are pretending to be the victim. Are you trying to get Mom and Dad to punish me?" Freya said. "Luna, with all those cameras you've installed, aren't you afraid this might backfire on you?" I sneered. "What's there to be afraid of? Those 40 cameras aren't even activated yet." Before I could finish, she leaped up and slapped me, cursing under her breath. "Why the hell didn't you say so earlier? If I'd known the cameras were useless, I would have taken you down ages ago." I quietly held my cheek and said, "The other 40 are on, though." She froze completely, standing there motionless as over 20 voice recorders clattered out of her pocket. "Since we both have dirt on each other and neither of us comes out looking good, plus we've already traded blows, we've agreed to wipe the slate clean by deleting all evidence and starting over from scratch." 6. After a whole day of fighting with Freya, we even ended up sending second brother to the hospital. Finally, things calmed down. Lying in bed, I kept wondering, who is that woman next to Dylan? Dylan reacted to Freya's and my death with chilling indifference, almost with disgust. The woman seemed frightened, but not exactly panicked. Both he and that woman didn't seem particularly surprised by Freya's and my death. Could this have been premeditated? Dylan's every waking moment was occupied by Freya and me. I had people watching him at the office, and others tailing him on the streets. His only pastime was coming over to my place to chat and play video games with my two brothers. What kind of terrifying woman could possibly snatch Dylan right under mine and Freya's noses in this situation? There's no way such a person exists. The only explanation is that Freya didn't keep a close enough watch on Dylan. That useless idiot. Useless people don't deserve to live. I ordered a big bag of peanuts through delivery. Since Freya is allergic to peanuts, I'm going to grind them into powder and scatter it everywhere I go tomorrow. Goodbye, Freya. You won't be holding me back anymore in this lifetime. Little did I know, the real culprit was about to reveal themselves. 7 early the next morning, just as I was heading out with the peanut powder, a Taoist priest came in with talismans and his whole family in tow. The evil spirit is right here. As long as we make her suffer 1,000 cuts, the whole family will be safe. My father looked grave and said, Luna, don't blame me. There's been a lot going on at home lately. The Master said it's because you came back and disrupted the family's fortune. If this continues, we're bound to face a bloodbath sooner or later. Me, well, the Master's actually spot on. If he hadn't shown up today, I would have finished off Freya, but I had to make one last desperate attempt. I was just about to speak up. Freya dropped to her knees with a thud, wrapping her arms around her father's legs as tears streamed down her face. Dad, please don't make my sister leave. I don't care if I get hit by a car when I go out, get struck by a flower pot when I go downstairs, get chased by wild dogs on a trip, or get hit by a train while driving, even if I end up dying alone in the wilderness. But our family has to stay together, all of us, no matter what. My dad had been a bit hesitant before, but hearing that immediately darkened his expression. My mom, ever the peacemaker, covered her mouth with a hesitant look and said, maybe we should get someone else to take a look. Let's invite both Buddha and God to come over. I clapped for my mother. You're absolutely right. Even though I spent 18 years with my adoptive parents and brought them from the slums all the way to Wall Street, some people just aren't destined for good fortune. They might not be able to handle the prosperity I bring. I wouldn't want to be the ruin of this whole family. My father, who dreamed of nothing but taking his company public, immediately had a strange new gleam in his eyes upon hearing this. To be honest, his expressions were the most dramatic in the entire room. His eyes were flickering like one of those multicolor LED lights, changing with every passing moment. I decided to strike while the iron was hot. Dealing with evil spirits is a serious matter. Relying on just one master isn't reliable enough. Just wait. I called 2 people directly over the phone, a senior Buddhist monk and a Catholic priest. The monk, with a kind face, shook his head and pointed at us, saying, everything depends on karma. This girl has a fate that brings prosperity to her family, husband, and all the neighbors, but if someone wronged her in a past life or did something shameful, they won't receive that prosperity in this lifetime. The priest, wildly sprinkling holy water, exclaimed, you're all possessed by demons. I'll perform an exorcism for you. My mom was holding a wad of cash, busily handing out money, first to the Taoist master, then to the Buddhist monk, and finally to the priest. Thoroughly enjoying the chaos, Freya and I stood with arms crossed, our gazes locked so intensely you could almost see sparks flying through the air. So what if it's spirit summoning? She calls 1, I'll summon 2. Watching her fume and rub her armpit like she was nursing a rage-induced lump, I knew it was time for me to step in. I crept closer, clutching the peanut powder in my pocket, one discreet sprinkle, and I could claim the Taoist priest scared her to death, then make my clean getaway. Just as I clenched the peanut powder and raised my hand high, my 2 brothers' voices suddenly came from outside the door. Dad, Mom, our sister is back. I froze. Since when did I have another sister? 8. Then I heard a sweet, delicate laugh, and a pair of diamond-studded high heels came into view first. My pupils contracted. I knew those heels all too well. In our past life, Freya and I met our end because of these ridiculously glamorous high heels. Good heavens, Buddha bless, amen. Thank goodness she's stuck with wearing just this one pair of shoes. I hesitated, then glanced at Freya and saw her looking back at me with the same complicated expression. Yes, she recognized these shoes too. Before I could say anything, she confronted me first. The other day when I went to buy shoes, was it you who snatched up my custom pair? Me, well, so that's what you remembered. I was just wondering who owned these high heels when Dylan got involved with her, and how much they had to do with our deaths. When I saw my dad stand up cheerfully, walk over and take the girl's hand. Luna, Freya, let me formally introduce you. This is my youngest daughter Bella, who's been missing for 19 years. Me, Dad, just how many daughters do you have? My father gave Freya and me a look of mild disdain. To be honest, neither of you is my biological daughter. Freya was a case of mistaken identity at the hospital, and when you came back to us, Luna, we weren't sure if our real daughter would ever return. We decided to raise you anyway. If Bella couldn't be found, you'd become our daughter for good. Wait, what? Are you saying that after I was rescued by the police, you knew I wasn't your daughter, but you kept me anyway? But the real bombshell came when Dad continued. There was a prophecy that our biological daughter would face a great misfortune. We figured you two were tougher and could handle it, so we kept Bella away from home until the danger passed. Freya and I exchanged stunned looks. So we were just kept around as misfortune shields. 9. My father made no attempt to hide it, pulling Bella right in front of us. Originally, Bella was supposed to stay outside a while longer, but Dylan simply couldn't wait. Besides, with so many masters here today, we can settle the Shaw family's matter at the same time. The way he looked at Bella was filled with heartache, completely different from how he looked at me or Freya. My daughter shouldn't always be kept outside. Unable to return home while you two lunatics reap all the benefits. Bella gave us a complicated look and said, "How are you still alive?" She instinctively covered her mouth after speaking, then beamed and said, "Hello, sisters, I look forward to working with you." Freya and I replied, "Sure, looking forward to it." The three masters nearby were no longer hostile but huddled in a corner, whispering with amused, gossipy expressions. The divine trinity of Buddha, Tao, and Emperor has achieved perfect harmony in our household. My father looked at the Taoist priest who had just entered and said, "Reverend, my youngest daughter's calamity should have passed by now, since you predicted she'd face bloodshed, and now these two adopted daughters of ours see blood every day. Surely that should have exhausted the bloodshed fortune." A chill suddenly ran through my heart. Ever since I returned, my parents never showed clear favoritism toward any of us, supporting one today, another tomorrow. Sometimes we'd suffer disadvantages, sometimes receive protection. This very ambiguity made us compete more fiercely, each trying to outshine the other in our parents' eyes. They never stopped us. In fact, they subtly encouraged us to fight even more fiercely. Just then, our eldest and second brothers, who were supposedly hospitalized because of us, returned, smiling. They sat Bella down, without a single visible injury from start to finish. Freya and I stood there frozen, neither of us saying a word. It turned out neither of us had ever received our parents' favor. We were just two fighting cocks they had raised by deliberately pitting us against each other. We're exhausted from fighting and don't want to keep it up, but they just throw us some scraps to fuel us and make us keep going at each other. 10. My dad didn't notice the change in our expressions at all and kept talking to the Taoist priest. "Could you take a look? If these two rebellious daughters destroy each other, will our family's luck finally turn around?" The Taoist priest was actually hired by Freya, so he quickly waved his hands and said, no need. We just need to capture the evil spirit that's the root cause of all this." My dad, "Luna, go with the Taoist priest, do whatever he says." Freya made it perfectly clear, "You're the evil spirit." Before he finished, Freya chimed in, "Dad, you've got it wrong. It's not my sister who's the evil spirit. The master meant the cockroach in her room, me." "Damn it, you're the one with cockroaches. Your whole room is infested with them." My dad frowned deeply. "Stop messing around. Hurry up and get rid of that evil spirit. I need to bring Bella home soon. How can I let my own daughter keep staying outside?" Taking Freya's cue, the Taoist priest nodded and declared, "By the infinite heavenly, it's that cockroach in Miss Zhao's room. Once I catch it, all will be well." My dad wasn't buying this nonsense, of course. He turned to the master and priest beside him and asked, "What do you two think?" Since I was the one who hired these two, they naturally chimed in together, nodding, "It's definitely the cockroach." And so, these three esteemed figures rolled up their sleeves, set aside their weapons, and started chasing after the cockroach in my room. I glanced at Freya, noticing her red-rimmed eyes and the complicated, dejected expression on her face. Without a word, I shoved the handful of peanut powder I'd already grabbed into my mouth, silently refusing. The peanut powder was so spicy it brought tears to my eyes. Meanwhile, Bella had already started picking out rooms in the villa. 11. She looked around the house and picked Freya's room. "Dad, I want to stay here." Just as Freya was about to speak, my dad said, "Freya, you should move out. You've lived in this room for so long. It's time for a change." My expression turned complicated. When I first came back, I had asked her for this very room too. We fought so fiercely over it that we ended up tumbling down the stairs, and in the end, I still didn't get it, but now, with just a word from Bella, she could take the room directly. Freya's expression was equally complicated. She had always believed she was the beloved daughter, but the harsh truth revealed that in front of Bella, she was nothing but a laughingstock. Bella moved into Freya's room, and to celebrate her return, their parents and brothers decided to go out for a big meal. After lively discussions about where to go, they turned and asked, "Which one of you is coming?" "I'm a bit confused," my eldest brother kindly explained. "Only one of you can come. The other has to stay and watch the house." "Watch the house," my foot, since when do wealthy families need to guard their own homes? Are the whole staff of servants and security just for show? Isn't this just another way to keep us at each other's throats? I was about to speak when Freya cut in. "Let my sister go instead. I'm not feeling well, so I'll stay." With that, she turned to head back to her room, only to freeze mid-step as she remembered it wasn't hers anymore. Then the words slipped out before I could stop myself. "You can stay in my room." 12. That dinner tonight was better off skipped. I sat quietly in the corner, watching Mom, Dad, and my two brothers constantly serving food to Bella, completely ignoring my presence. My mom is usually very good to me, but today the only thing she said to me was, "Luna, since you're here today and Freya isn't, she'll probably throw a fit when we get back. You need to be the bigger person and let her have her way. Okay, show some maturity." In The past, hearing those words would have stuck with me, and I'd have picked a fight with Freya as soon as we got home, but today, I just felt a chill run through me, from the top of my head down to the soles of my feet. I sat quietly for a while, and then another person arrived at the banquet. Dylan. Dylan was still as charming and dashing as ever, polite and humble to all women, and I was madly infatuated with his central air conditioning personality, warm to everyone, but now, he was no longer that central air conditioner. He didn't even glance my way and went straight to sit beside Bella, peeling shrimp for her with his own hands. You should know, in this life and the last, it was always Freya and I who peeled his shrimp, because Dylan loves eating shrimp. The two of us would start frantically competing to peel them the moment we sat down at the table. Dylan would always pick at his food, take a few bites, and then pass the rest to those around him, although Freya and I were annoyed. Our focus wasn't really on Dylan. Seeing how intimate he and Bella were, I suspected they had known each other for a long time, but because of the rumor that the Shaw family's daughter would face a bloody disaster, they hadn't let Bella return until now. Dylan noticed I had been staring at him, and a hint of smugness flashed in his eyes. Luna, it seems you've finally outdone Freya to sit by my side, but let me warn you, Bella is nothing like Freya. If you lay a finger on her, you won't even get to be my mistress. A flicker of displeasure crossed Bella's face. Dylan, you already have me. Why would you need a mistress? I'll be upset. Dylan coaxed her. They're just playthings. None of them could ever threaten your position. Completely oblivious, I had already scrambled onto the table and smashed a whole plate of unpeeled crayfish right into his face with both hands and feet. 13. My parents locked me in the basement, but not before giving me a brutal beating. The entire Shaw family joined in, while Bella covered her eyes and whimpered. I've never hit anyone before, I'm too scared to. The others only gave me superficial wounds, but Bella's kick landed right in the pit of my stomach. It hurt so much I couldn't catch my breath for the longest time, and to top it off, she fainted from the shock herself, lying on the ground, feeling the ache all over my body. I wondered, was I really going to be locked up in here for the rest of my life? Just as the thought crossed my mind, I heard a noise at the door. Struggling to turn my head, I saw a few pancakes being slipped through the crack underneath, followed by Freya's slightly awkward voice. Luna, are you okay? I hadn't cried when I was mocked or beaten by others, but hearing the voice of my lifelong rival made me feel like tearing up. I forced a cold tone and asked, what is it? Freya said, I heard them say they're going to lock you up for a month, with no lights or internet. She paused before continuing, they told me if I can keep you in line, they'll make me the second young lady of the household and give me company shares. If I can make you submit, they'll even grant me official recognition as a true member of the Shaw family. Her words sent a pang through my heart. Hadn't we been fighting all these years just to earn our family's approval? Yet after all this struggle, even having faced death once, we still hadn't gained what we sought. But Freya snapped, screw that, who the hell wants to keep being their daughter? Looking back, I spent the first 20 years of my life trapped in their mind games. What a load of crap. The angrier she got, the more furious she became, until she finally smashed the basement door lock and swung it open. Come on out, Luna, let's stop wasting our time with them and start living our own lives. But I didn't step out. Instead, I murmured quietly, in our past life, I think we were murdered. 14. After the Shaw family had Bella, their business took a nosedive and nearly went bankrupt. That's when a mystic showed up and claimed the family's daughter must endure great hardships for their fortunes to turn around. Unwilling to let Bella suffer, they adopted Freya from an orphanage. During her childhood, Freya was constantly plagued by bizarre accidents, tumbling downstairs, getting hit by falling flower pots, or being assaulted on her way home from school became routine occurrences. But as Freya grew older, she gradually learned to defend herself, while my father's demands became increasingly insatiable. That's when he spotted me, freshly escaped from the adoptive family and desperately searching for my birth parents. He paid to forge a paternity test and brought me home. The moment I stepped through the door, the entire family was already scheming to pit us against each other. They'd dangle limited resources like carrots, occasionally tilting the scales to watch us fight like dogs over scraps. It suddenly hit me, in our previous life, the day we both died, my father was finalizing a crucial business deal. Had it succeeded, the Shaw family would have become untouchable in the corporate world, so our deaths might have been premeditated all along. No wonder they never intervene when we fight so viciously. They either pacify or provoke. Our miscarriages and the children who died tragically may not be accidents, but the handiwork of these seemingly gentle Shaw family members who raised us. What should we do? I asked Freya. She smiled without a word. Yet I felt I understood exactly what she meant to say. Yes, we've been rivals for what feels like 2 lifetimes. After all these years, we know each other as well as we know ourselves. 15. The Shaw family returned from dinner, bringing Dylan home in high spirits. But the moment they pushed the door open, everyone froze in disbelief. Holy smokes, did a hurricane throw a rager in this villa? Every piece of furniture, decor, and appliances completely trashed. Not a single spot left untouched. Right in the epicenter of the chaos lies the butler. His clothes shredded like rags, limbs twitching uncontrollably. My dad stared in disbelief and asked, "What on earth happened here?" The butler spat out a mouthful of plaster dust and croaked. The eldest and second young miss started fighting. It kept escalating until they began smashing everything in sight. And then, did they awaken superpowers? Dylan asked, completely bewildered, to cause this kind of damage. You'd need some ultimate move like a shockwave spiral sphere or something equally devastating. No, they're injured. My dad's face lit up with surprise. Where are they then? They've been rushed to the hospital, the butler said, getting to his feet. The eldest young lady was coughing up blood like a fountain, spurting half a meter high, and the second young lady's arms and legs were blown clean off. My dad slapped his thigh and exclaimed, "It's a done deal." The whole family was as thrilled as if it were New Year's. Leaving the butler completely bewildered, my dad happened to be working on a crucial project recently, with one of us injured and the other disabled. That project was bound to succeed. He was in such high spirits that when I called him crying, begging for medical expenses, he happily obliged and declared, "Good kid, I'll give you 500,000, focus on getting treatment, but don't tell your sister, she might try to screw you over for that money. And even I can't stop her." My mom pulled the same trick and called Freya. "Freya, honey, I heard you. Went to the hospital. I'll come see you as soon as I'm done with work. Here's some money for now. Make sure you keep it safe. Don't let Luna find out. She's always been so domineering, so you'd better steer clear of her." Then she gave her 600,000 yuan. Freya, sitting with me at the airport, said, "I'm more valuable than you, me, huh? Because you're heavier." After a moment of silence, she asked, "Are our earnings really determined by our weight? I weigh 50 kilograms, and she's actually 10 kilograms heavier than me." We both fell silent, our spirits deeply wounded by the realization. With the money our parents gave us, we tracked down that renowned master from back in the day. He came out to meet us in a wheelchair, and what a sight he was, both legs gone, his right arm in a cast, a man in his 40s without a single tooth of his own, wearing dentures, his hair thinning into a perfect bald spot, and so gaunt he looked like a walking skeleton. Freya said he'd done too many shady things, and I immediately covered her mouth, afraid we'd soon become another one of his misdeeds. The master sighed upon learning our purpose and said, "This matter has been weighing on my conscience. It's unjust to sustain a family's fortunes at the cost of suffering for you too." 16. The master truly had some skills and was quite renowned in his circle back in the day. He didn't care much about karma and would do anything for money. That's why, despite amassing great wealth over the years, his health has deteriorated and his children have died one after another. He said that once we come to our senses, leave the Shao family, and stop fighting among ourselves, the spell he cast will naturally lose its power. As for us, we can choose to return to the Shao family for revenge, or go find our biological parents. The master advised in a hoarse voice, "Let me give you a piece of advice. The Shao family is not to be trifled with. Rather than wasting your lives on revenge, remember you have your own families. Focus on living your own lives." Freya said, "I can't accept this." She was an orphan who never held much hope for family from the start, but I wanted to find my own. After over 2 months, I finally tracked down my biological parents' home. With a nervous heart, I approached the house only to find it draped with funeral wreaths. My parents were dead. After 20 futile years searching for me, they had taken their own lives in despair. Just the night before I found them, I stood there numb, watching strangers come and go through what had been my home, my sanctuary. Just a day before, the people who should have been waiting for me were gone. My eyes were stinging with tears until someone came over and held me in their arms. It was Freya. She said, "It's okay, you still have me. I'll always be your sister." I hugged her tightly, beaming with a radiant smile. Okay, a smile of unprecedented gentleness graced her face, but our minds were already racing with all sorts of devious schemes. 17. After we left, the Shao family's business began to decline. Of course, it wasn't just because their so-called master's mystical arrangements had lost their power. Having been educated and influenced by the Shao family for so many years, Freya and I found it effortless to throw a wrench in their works. What's more, we had found ourselves a remarkably capable ally. The Julian family, the Shao family's arch-rival, has been locked in a business war with them for over a decade. They've always been completely dominated by the Shao family, likely due to some kind of mystical arrangement. Every time they had a surefire project that could turn things around, it would inevitably end up plagued by all sorts of unexpected mishaps. To catch the attention of Julian, the CEO of the Julian family's conglomerate, we devised a meticulous plan to seduce him. Rumor has it that Julian has a particular weakness for the delicate, innocent flower type, especially the kind portrayed as the bullied youngest daughter from a wealthy family. How do I know? Well, my elementary school classmate is married to Julian's assistant, and she specifically helps him hunt down all sorts of novels featuring wealthy CEOs and these delicate, innocent heroines. This intel is absolutely solid. So Freya waited along Julian's usual route, gave me this delicate, pitiful makeup look, and then started slapping me like crazy. Her hands were flying so fast, like a spinning fan, and I was howling in pain. Barely holding on to my composure, just as expected, Julian stopped, shielded me in his arms, and took me back to his villa. He said to me, "Luna, don't be afraid, I've got you." My tears were genuine. Freya's slaps were no joke. Those extra 20 pounds on me weren't for nothing. Meanwhile, Freya had already climbed the corporate ladder to an executive position at their partner company, working with me from the inside. We brought the Shaw family's business crashing down. My parents, no, I should call them Marcus Shaw and Claire Shaw now, were utterly stunned, never expecting our departure to have such a profound impact on them. 18 Marcus and Claire Shaw started calling us incessantly, their words laced with hints and pleas for us to come back home. Marcus Shaw, "Luna, the thing is, Mom and Dad, me, wah, you only love Freya and not me, wah." Marcus Shaw, "No, Luna, listen to me, wah wah wah." Marcus Shaw, "Luna, don't cry yet, just hear me out." Me, "Dad, you don't even care that I'm crying, boo-hoo-hoo." Marcus Shaw, "Every phone call goes the same way, so he ends up texting me on WeChat. I always tell him how miserable I am. He keeps sending me red envelopes, and I keep accepting them while still refusing to go home." Claire Shaw often reached out to Freya too, and Freya was even more blunt, "Not going back. The whole lot of them are just broke-ass scumbags. They tried multiple times to get us to come back, but it never worked out. And the Shaw family's business was going downhill fast. After a while, I heard they were planning to take Bella hiking. I called Dylan directly and said, "Your in-laws are planning to kill their daughter for the insurance money. Your precious little darling is about to die." Dylan was horrified and drove straight there, only to witness Marcus Shaw pushing Bella off the cliff. He immediately called the police. Marcus Shaw had only intended to injure Bella to get out of his current predicament, but he ended up landing himself in jail. Bella was taken away from the Shaw residence by Dylan, left to deal with the mess alone. Claire Shaw tried to visit Bella several times, but Dylan turned her away each time. Later, Claire Shaw brought another girl home. 19. The girl was thin and small, with timid eyes. Claire Shaw spun her a tale. "You're our biological daughter, but you were taken by human traffickers years ago." The girl looked utterly bewildered. "Didn't her whole family fall from a cable car?" She's 19 now. When she was 6, her family took her on an outing, but the cable car crashed. Everyone died except her. She survived because her family held her up. Claire Shaw said, "They're not your family. That whole household are human traffickers." The little girl fell silent, but Claire Shaw continued, "They're the ones who snatched you from our home back then. You can't feel grateful toward child traffickers." She named the girl Mira, hoping she would remember the debt she owed her true parents. Mira quietly accepted the name and followed Claire Shaw in silence, though fresh bruises and wounds often appeared on her face. The Shaw family's business took a nosedive, and Claire Shaw had no choice but to take drastic measures, going straight for Mira. The Shaw family's business was barely starting to pick up. Meanwhile, I secretly texted Bella, "Looks like your parents don't want you anymore." Bella immediately rushed home and ran right into Mira. Bella's belly was slightly swollen with Dylan's child. Seeing Mira, she flew into a rage. "You keep bringing daughters into this house one after another. What do you take me for?" Bella couldn't care less about business matters. All she knew was that her parents had hurt her for the sake of business and kept bringing daughters home. She viciously tormented Mira, slapping her face with a ruler, kicking her in the stomach, and burning her hair with a lighter. Mira tried to fight back, but several servants held her down firmly. Mira was beaten until her face was covered in blood. Claire Shaw knew perfectly well what was happening but hid inside her room, unwilling to let her own daughter witness such violence, though she had no problem with her daughter abusing others. When Mira was nearly beaten to death, Dylan appeared. His face darkened instantly at the sight before him. He scooped Mira into his arms and snarled at Bella, "I never thought you were such a vicious, heartless woman." Bella's face turned ashen as she collapsed to her knees with a thud. 20. Dylan still married the Shaw family's daughter, but it was Mira he chose. In his words, Mira was like a resilient little white flower standing strong through violent storms, making you instinctively want to protect her. This ending isn't surprising, but the reason feels familiar. Bella completely lost it and rushed at Dylan to fight him. During the struggle, she took a bad fall. The baby survived, but was born prematurely. After 2 weeks in the incubator, the baby was stolen. Bella frantically searched everywhere for the child until she completely lost her mind. "My baby, my baby, my baby." Claire Shaw was also in agony. "Years ago, she selfishly took me away while I was searching for my biological parents, causing me to be separated from them forever. She was also the mastermind behind the deaths of Myra's family. She orchestrated the cable car accident, but after Mira became an orphan, Claire thought she was too frail and difficult to care for, so she took Freya instead. Now, her only daughter has gone insane, her grandson was taken away, her husband is in prison, and the Shaw family's business has completely collapsed. Left with no choice, she spent her days caring for Bella, but one late night, during a psychotic episode, Bella mistook her for a child trafficker who had stolen a baby and stabbed her to death with a fruit knife. Bella was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Dylan visited her every day, and I initially thought he was a loyal, albeit somewhat promiscuous, person, but not long. After news broke that Bella was pregnant, well, as expected, you can't put too much faith in human nature. Dylan knelt before Mira, begging for forgiveness, and Mira smiled at him with a saintly benevolence as she forgave him. I forgive you. After all, you are the father of my child. Dylan looked at her in surprise. You're pregnant. Out of a sense of guilt, Dylan doted on Mira and took great care of her. But within a few days, he slipped back into his old ways and started fooling around again. Soon after, he came across an article on his phone from a public account, a story about dating someone with mental illness. It made his blood run hot, and he went looking for Bella again. This time, Bella struck again, stabbing him to death. 21. This writing of yours, Luna, you're seriously twisted, Freya remarked, clicking her tongue as she read my article. I've got to say, I really like what you've written. Only a pervert would be into this kind of stuff. We stared each other down for a moment, then it hit us. We were like the author and reader of some twisted story. We both loved it, yet couldn't help cursing each other out, and the story's most devoted reader was Dylan. I mean, ride or die loyal, literally to the death. Mira came to see us, holding Dylan's only child in her arms, her face glowing with vengeful satisfaction. The Dylans were involved in the cable car incident back then. All it took was one glance from Dylan in the crowd when he said he liked me, and the Shaw family had my entire family killed. Then they later claimed I was too skinny and dumped me in an orphanage. Finally, I've had my revenge. The Shaw family's eldest and second brothers were also involved in what happened back then. The child in her arms is the only remaining descendant of the Dylan family, so everything the Dylans own will be hers one day. As for us, the Shaw family has fallen completely, and we've made our peace with that. We don't even care about the Shaw families possessions. We can earn our own way. We never expected that the same destructive force we wielded against each other would become even more potent when we joined forces. But there was one tiny flaw in our plan. We weren't entirely sure Dylan would fall for Mira and abandon Bella for her, to which Freya remarked, Dylan will definitely take the bait. He's always had a weakness for damsels in distress. I was baffled. He likes delicate, innocent types. Julian's into that too. Why are all the CEOs drawn to these pure, unassuming girls? No sooner had I spoken than I noticed Freya's eyes darting everywhere except at me. Knowing her all too well, I grabbed her by the collar. Spill it. What's really going on, Freya? I won't tell, I won't. I threw a punch at her, and she instantly fought back. Before we knew it, we were tangled up in a full-on brawl again. I guess this battle between the real and fake heiress is destined to be a lifelong fight. Story 2. My boyfriend seems to have traveled back from the end of the world. He said that the end of the world brought by heavy rain was coming soon, and he asked me to sell my villa, take out usury loans, and give all the money to him to stockpile supplies. Looking at the way he was trying so hard to persuade me, I couldn't help but sneer in my heart, because he's a fake time traveler, while I'm a real reincarnated person. Harley, I know this sounds absurd, but I really did travel back from the end of the world. My boyfriend Jonathan's voice suddenly rang out, startling me into a cold sweat. When I came to my senses, I looked at my own hand. It had a real feel and warmth. It was no longer a translucent spiritual body. After being pushed off a tall building by Jonathan in my previous life, I actually reincarnated. The scene in front of me was all too familiar. Jonathan held my shoulders with both hands and said each word earnestly. Half a month later, the end of the world brought by heavy rain will arrive. This rain will last for a full 2 years, and the whole city will be submerged in the rain. What's even more terrifying are the floods and tsunamis. Countless huge waves will come crashing in. High-rise buildings will collapse, and there will be countless corpses everywhere, even you. As he said this, his throat choked up, his slightly red eyes even glistened with tears. It was with such superb acting skills that he fooled me completely in my last life. It was only at the moment of my death that I realized all of this was an end-of-the-world lie that Jonathan had tailored just for me. Jonathan knew my background. When I was 15 years old, I witnessed my parents die in a car accident during a heavy rain. Ever since then, I've been afraid of the rain. Jonathan took advantage of this and managed to win my heart. On countless terrifying rainy nights, Jonathan used his patience and tenderness to coax me to sleep on the phone. Whenever it rained, he would always show up by my side with an umbrella. Because of his meticulous care, I gradually let down my guard. After my parents passed away, Jonathan was the only person I trusted, so when he said he had traveled back from the end of the world. I didn't delve into it and easily believed him. What's more, the weather had been strange recently, with continuous rain. This made me, who was already afraid of the rain, like a frightened bird, wrapped in painful memories. Jonathan took the opportunity to persuade me to quickly sell the villa left to me by my parents, then use my ID card to take out usury loans, and hand over the money to him for stockpiling supplies after cashing it out. Anyway, after the end of the world brought by heavy rain arrives, the villa will soon be submerged. As for the usury loans, when the world order collapses, who will care about collecting the debts? I instinctively asked, why use my ID card? What about yours? I've already taken out a loan with mine. Jonathan was well prepared and pointed to a tall building not far behind him. Harley, do you see that building? During the end of the world brought by heavy rain, countless buildings were submerged and washed away, but until the end of the world, this building still stood firm, and only the floors below the 20th floor were submerged. This building has a total of 33 floors. The top floor is prone to leaking, so I used the loan money to buy the second top floor, which is the 32nd floor. This is our shelter in the end of the world. After saying that, he took my hand and led me to the home he bought with the loan. When we opened the door, there were already more than a dozen boxes of compressed biscuits and instant noodles stacked in the room. Jonathan put on a full show, then he looked at me affectionately, with determination in his eyes as if he had regained something lost. Harley, since God has given me the opportunity to travel back, I will definitely protect you. Believe me, this time, I will definitely accompany you to survive in the end of the world. In my previous life, I was touched by his thoughtfulness and consideration, and because of these words, I completely believed his story. Under Jonathan's guidance, I took out all kinds of formal and informal loans, cashing out 2 million yuan. Then I sold the villa at a low price, cashing out 10 million yuan. I gave all of this 12 million yuan to Jonathan. He said that since he had experienced the end of the world, he knew best which supplies should be bought. I offered to help him with the procurement, but he refused. The procurement of supplies must be kept low-key. If I act alone, it's not easy to attract attention. I believed him again, however, despite trusting him so much. I didn't wait for the arrival of the end of the world brought by heavy rain. Instead, I waited for him to come home with his childhood sweetheart, and they pushed me off the 32nd floor of the tall building. You actually believe such an absurd lie about traveling back from the end of the world. Thanks to your belief, Marina and I can have a worry-free rest of our lives. Harley, don't blame me. Blame your parents for dying early. You, a woman, can't keep hold of your wealth. Anyway, you would have been deceived sooner or later, so it's better to be deceived by me. The man who once treated me like a treasure revealed a ferocious and devilish face, and his childhood sweetheart Marina pried my fingers off the railing one by one. I fell on that rainy night, too. Harley, what are you spacing out about? Did you hear what I said? Jonathan's voice pulled me out of my memories. Seeing the person in front of me again, an intense hatred rushed straight to my brain. I forcefully suppressed my emotions and looked up into his eyes. Did you just say that you traveled back from the end of the world? That's right, Jonathan said eagerly. I know this might be beyond your understanding, but I swear, everything I said is true. His oath was as despicable as his lies. I didn't expose him and just asked, how did I die in that end of the world you experienced? Jonathan was taken aback. It seemed that he didn't expect that this was the first question I asked. He made up a story right away. When the end of the world came, you were trapped in the villa. In less than 2 days, the basement and the first and second floors were flooded. I tried my best to borrow a kayak, picked you up, and we took shelter in a tall building. But that day, when I went out to look for food, the flood came and shattered the windows, and you were swept away too. I stared into Jonathan's eyes, trying to find a trace of guilt in them, but there was none. Then he immediately, just like in my previous life, revealed the purpose of his visit. I know that this villa is a memento left to you by your parents, but in the end of the world brought by heavy rain, this is the first place to be flooded. Harley, listen to me, hurry up and sell the villa, and once you get the money, immediately stockpile supplies and reinforce the house so that we can survive. As soon as I heard these words, I understood. Jonathan didn't reincarnate with me. If he had really traveled back, he definitely wouldn't have advised me to sell the villa. Instead, he would have tried every means to take it over, because the real end of the world didn't come from heavy rain, but from high temperatures. 3. After I died in my previous life, my soul didn't disappear immediately. During that period, the death toll increased sharply due to natural disasters in various places. The ox-headed and horse-faced messengers were too busy to handle everything, and there were bound to be oversights. I became a soul that slipped through the net, floating in the sky above the city. I saw the real end of the world. The heavy rain that Jonathan had lied about lasting for 2 years actually stopped after a week. The clouds dispersed and the fog cleared, and everyone thought the weather was about to get better. Little did they know that this was the real beginning of the end of the world. 3 days after the heavy rain ended, the temperature began to soar from 30 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius, and then to 50 degrees Celsius. Waves of heat waves came. The fields dried up, and the water resources evaporated rapidly. In less than 5 days, the water and electricity supplies were cut off, and the outdoor temperature also soared to a terrifying 60 degrees Celsius. Eggs could be cooked directly on the ground, and people on the street were dried into mummies. With no one to deal with them, no one dared to go outside, but staying at home. There was also a shortage of supplies. Countless people were starved to death, died of thirst, or were roasted to death, with nowhere to hide. Some people wanted to go to the mountains to escape the heat, but there were frequent mountain fires, and they would be reduced to ashes in one fire. Some people wanted to go out to stockpile supplies at night, but due to the influence of abnormal geomagnetism, the night no longer existed, and the city fell into an abnormal polar day phenomenon. In such an end of the world with high temperatures, the best hiding place was the basement of a suburban villa, and the 32nd floor that Jonathan but would surely become a living hell due to the heat. Harley, why aren't you speaking? Don't you believe me? Seeing that I hadn't spoken for a long time, Jonathan was a bit anxious, looking at his calculating appearance. I smiled. How could that be? Jonathan, you are my boyfriend, the only person I trust. No matter what you say, I will believe it. I hooked my arm around Jonathan's, acting dependently, but my heart was cold. Since God has given me a chance to start over in this life, not only do I want to survive, I also want Jonathan and his childhood sweetheart to die in the most tragic way, for just like in my previous life, after gaining my trust, Jonathan told me that he had bought the second top floor, the 32nd floor, with a loan, and then led me to take a look. This is the best place to survive the end of the world brought by heavy rain. Hurry up and sell the villa left to you by your parents. We still have a lot of uses for the money. Okay, I'll go back and pack up, and I'll deal with the villa tomorrow. I readily agreed and walked towards the balcony as I spoke. In my previous life, it was right here that Jonathan and Marina pushed me off the tall building. Seeing that I agreed so readily, Jonathan immediately took advantage of the situation. There are also online loans. I used all my loan money to buy the house, so I can only use your ID information to take out more loans. Anyway, the order will collapse soon, and there's no need to repay them at all. Before he could finish his words, I suddenly grabbed his collar and unhesitatingly pushed him towards the outside of the balcony. Instantly, Jonathan let out a scream. He didn't have time to react, and half of his body was already hanging outside the balcony. Harley, what are you doing? Jonathan was furious and tried to break free, and I didn't stop him. When he was struggling, I gave a gentle tug to pull him back to the safe area. Are you crazy? This is the 32nd floor. Jonathan was still in shock, and I just calmly pointed to a place not far away. Look, what's that? Jonathan looked in the direction of my voice. There were dense ants crawling in a long line along the outer edge of the balcony, in a mighty and spectacular scene. I just wanted you to see these ants. Before natural disasters, animals will all have abnormal reactions, with so many ants gathering on the 32nd floor. It seems that the end of the world is really coming. I looked innocent and spoke in a plaintive tone. Jonathan originally had a lot of grievances, but when he heard me say this, his expression immediately softened. He still coveted my money. The more I believed in the end of the world, the greater his chance of success. Thinking of this, Jonathan forcibly suppressed his anger and returned to his former gentle appearance. You scared me. I almost thought you were trying to murder me. How could that be? I'm still counting on you to survive in the end of the world. I lowered my head and hid the murderous intent in my eyes. Of course, killing him was something I would do, but it wasn't the right time yet. Slowly simmering over a low fire would make it more satisfying. I glanced at the time. According to the trajectory of my previous life, the other protagonist should make an appearance. Sure enough, the next moment, the sound of entering a password came from the door lock. Marina was pushing a cart and moving a cartload of supplies into the house. Jonathan also went to help. Brother, I bought a lot of mineral water, compressed biscuits, instant noodles, and canned fish and meat as you ordered. I know this is far from enough, but I really don't have any more money. These words were exactly the same as in my previous life. In front of me, Jonathan and Marina always addressed each other as brother and sister. They claimed that one took their father's surname and the other took their mother's surname. After their parents passed away, they depended on each other for survival. So in my previous life, I took good care of Marina. I had no objection at all to her proposal of spending the end of the world with us. Unexpectedly, Marina wasn't Jonathan's real sister at all, but his lover. The two of them colluded with each other and worked together to kill me. What was even more infuriating was, although the end of the world that Jonathan described was a hoax, in order to make me believe it, they pretended to stockpile a lot of supplies. And when the real end of the world arrived, these supplies instead became the capital for Their survival, why should my death be the nourishment for their happiness? I was unwilling, looking at the way the two of them were moving the supplies. I quietly took out my phone and took a photo. The door was open, revealing the house number of the opposite resident. For someone with ulterior motives, it was enough to determine the location. After all the supplies were moved to the bedroom, Jonathan started his act again. Harley, Marina still hasn't paid off her college loans and can't borrow any more money. The supplies are far from enough now. We still need money to reinforce the house to prevent water leakage and the glass from being smashed by the flood. So, can you get this money as soon as possible? Jonathan looked at me with expectant eyes, hardly able to hide the greed in his eyes. Marina chimed in, Sister Harley, my brother has told me about the end of the world brought by heavy rain. He is a man who always keeps his word, and I believe him. As his girlfriend, shouldn't you give him more trust? If I were you, I would definitely trust him wholeheartedly and let him take charge of arranging the expenses for the end of the world. It seemed like she was persuading me, but in fact, she was suppressing me. Marina still couldn't hide her jealousy, and there was a hint of a calculating and catty tone in her words. It was ridiculous that I was blinded by love in my previous life and didn't notice it. I understand. I nodded in cooperation and forced myself to get into the role, but I don't have my ID card with me now, so I can't take out a loan. When I go back, I'll sell the house and take out a loan, and we'll get through the end of the world together. Jonathan and Marina exchanged a look and relaxed simultaneously, so much so that they didn't notice that before I left, I quietly took their ID cards. 5, of course. With just an ID card, it's impossible to get a formal loan, but for informal small workshops, by taking out loans from several of them, it's still possible to get hundreds of thousands of yuan. After I died in my previous life, I saw countless ways that people struggled to survive, so I naturally also learned about some abnormal loan channels. I took out a loan of 600,000 yuan using their 2 ID cards. I didn't take out a loan with my own ID card. After all, the end of the world will eventually come to an end, and then with compound interest. I don't know what kind of troubles it will bring. I didn't sell the villa either. Instead, I mortgaged it to the bank and got a loan of 8 million yuan. This way, I could get the money and still continue to live in it. The first thing I did after getting the money was to renovate the villa. Under high temperatures, due to the large temperature difference between the inside and outside of the glass, it was very likely to self-explode. I replaced all the glass in the house with bulletproof glass that could withstand high temperatures. It could not only resist high temperatures but was also strong enough. The entire walls of the house were covered with high thermal resistance and heat insulation nanomaterials. The wall of the villa courtyard was originally 3 meters high and didn't need to be built higher, but it still couldn't stop people with the intention of climbing over it. I added a 1 meter high voltage electric fence to the wall and placed a circle of dense spikes around it. In order to ensure the power supply, I also bought the newly developed solar panels and covered the roof of the villa completely with them to match these. There was also a generator, which served as a backup power source in case the solar energy system malfunctioned. I specifically chose a construction team from out of town for the renovation. Seeing what I had done, the renovation workers were amazed. Miss, it seems like you're building a fortress. I laughed it off and said, I'm afraid of the heat. And I also have paranoia of persecution. This makes me feel more at ease. I paid double the price and asked for expedited service. Although the other party thought it was strange, they still complied with my requests for the sake of the money. Of course, I didn't forget about Jonathan and Marina. Didn't they say that the end of the world brought by heavy rain was approaching? Then I would teach them a lesson with their own lies. 6. I found another construction team locally and told them, my boyfriend said that the end of the world brought by heavy rain is coming soon. He's afraid that water will seep into the rooms, so he asked to add a layer of metal protective material to the walls. The construction team was taken aback. The end of the world brought by heavy rain. That's too ridiculous. I agreed and pointed to my head. My boyfriend has a bit of a mental problem, but I love him very much and want to fulfill his wish. The material for preventing water seepage doesn't have to be too good. Ordinary metal sheet will do, but because of my boyfriend's obsession, we have to tell him that the material used is a high molecular waterproof nanomaterial, which is extremely expensive, so that he can feel at ease. Is that okay? The construction team was touched by my deep affection and agreed. On the day of the start of work, I took the construction team to Jonathan's house on the 32nd floor. Fortunately, no one was at home. I quietly put their 2 ID cards back, and then quickly asked the construction team to start working. We covered all the walls and the roof of the whole house with metal sheets, and the joints were welded tightly, making it airtight. After that, we pasted a layer of wallpaper on the surface. It doesn't look conspicuous now, but when the end of the world with high temperatures comes, this place will be like a huge iron sheet steamer. I set aside a small portion of the money I borrowed with their ID cards to build this unique steamer for them, taking from them and using it against them. How fitting. Unexpectedly, just halfway through pasting the wallpaper. Jonathan and Marina came back. Harley, what are you doing bringing so many people into the house? Marina was the first to scream. I spread my hands innocently. Didn't Jonathan say that the house must be reinforced? I finally managed to scrape together some money and quickly called the construction team to reinforce it. At that moment, I clearly saw the expressions of the two of them change. Marina couldn't help but scream, "What are you doing making decisions on your own? I told you that you should give the money to my brother and let him make overall arrangements. You don't know anything, and you're wasting money on these useless things." Jonathan was silent for a moment, and then suddenly asked, "Harley, have you already taken out a loan, or has the villa already been sold? If we have the money, we have to pull it together quickly. Only by uniting can we survive." Unite? They probably want to unite to take all my possessions. Every word they said was about money. I'm afraid they already regarded my family property as their own and wouldn't allow me to dispose of it privately. I lowered my head and put on a pitiful look, with tears glistening in my eyes. "But Jonathan, you said that in my last life, I died because the windows were broken by the flood. If the house was stronger, I wouldn't have died, right?" The two people opposite choked, thinking of their previous words. They really shot themselves in the foot, since they said that in my last life, I was swept away by the flood indoors. Then reinforcing the house is quite reasonable, right? "Jonathan, you know that I've always been afraid of the rain," I continued to act, "and these materials are all high-molecular waterproof nanomaterials. After welding them on, it will really be much safer." Jonathan's face turned slightly pale. "High-molecular nanomaterials? How much did you spend?" "It's expensive, but it doesn't matter. I already have a prospective buyer for my villa, and the loan money will be released soon. We'll still have a lot of money to prepare other supplies after." Hearing this, Jonathan and Marina exchanged a look. The expressions of both of them softened. After thinking for a moment, Jonathan coaxed and deceived me. "Let it go this time, but after you get the money, you must give it to me for unified arrangement. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. You just need to wait for me to arrange everything and don't have to worry too much." I suppressed the sneer in my heart and nodded obediently. "Okay, I'll listen to you from now on," Jonathan added. "Selling the villa is a big deal. Since there is already a prospective customer, I'll accompany you to negotiate." I knew that he wanted to keep a close eye on me, for fear that the duck that was already in his mouth, would fly away. I counterattacked with Pee-wee. "Jonathan, I trust you so much that I even believe your words about the end of the world brought by heavy rain and time travel. Why can't you give me a little trust? Or do you never believe me and are afraid that I'll run away with the money?" I frowned and looked extremely serious. I had the attitude of, "If you don't trust me, I really won't give you the money." Jonathan was afraid of provoking me and didn't insist any longer. He just didn't forget to remind me, "Harley, pack your luggage and move here earlier." "Okay," I agreed verbally, but in my heart, I knew I probably wouldn't come here again in the future. In 4 days, this continuous rain that has lasted for many days will stop, and then there will be a long-lasting high temperature. 7. When I got back to the villa, the insulation and protection renovation was almost completed. The various supplies I bought online a few days ago also arrived one after another. Most of the food was easy to preserve in a dry environment. I bought them in batches from different online stores and asked them to use express boxes without logos to avoid attracting attention. When the courier was handling the items, he asked me what I had bought that there were so many of them. I said they were renovation materials or furniture and home appliances, and I only let them move the items to the first floor. After they left, I moved them to the basement. I calculated the power of the solar panels, and it was more than enough to power 4 large freezers and 2 air conditioners simultaneously, so I bought 4 large freezers and placed them in the basement to store frozen meat and water. Weapons were also essential. I bought an electric stun baton, a dagger, and anti-wolf spray. After thinking about it, I still felt it wasn't enough, so I went to the black market and spent a high price to get a gun. This was also a channel that I accidentally discovered when my soul was floating. During the period of preparing supplies, Jonathan called me many times. I just prevaricated. "The villa sales contract has been signed, but the money hasn't arrived yet. Just wait a little longer. The loan hasn't been released yet. I don't know why either. I'll go and ask about it," he kept shouting that time was pressing and urged me to finish it quickly. It was only 2 days before the arrival of the end of the world with high temperatures that I finally made a promise. 2 days, at most 2 days, the money will definitely arrive. The statement finally calmed him down. As early as when installing the iron plates on the 32nd floor, I installed several pinhole cameras in Jonathan's house. After hanging up the phone, through the mobile phone monitoring, I clearly saw Jonathan hugging Marina, laughing greedily and triumphantly. "Just wait for 2 more days. When Harley transfers the money, we'll deal with her. We mustn't let her realize that the end of the world doesn't exist and call the police first." Marina was still a bit worried. "Will she really transfer the money? What if something goes wrong?" "Don't worry," Jonathan was very confident. She used high molecular waterproof nanomaterials to renovate our house. She must have believed in the existence of the end of the world. Moreover, her parents both died in the rain. As soon as she hears about the end of the world brought by heavy rain, she must be scared to death. When he said this, the two of them burst into wild laughter. Then they stuck together, with their sticky saliva intertwined. I clenched my fists and suppressed the churning nausea. Jonathan was wrong. I used to be really afraid of the rain, but after seeing the living hell in the end of the world with high temperatures, the rain no longer scares me. It is the hope for countless people to survive. Looking at the two arrogant people in the monitoring, I took a deep breath and posted a message on the internet. My boyfriend seems to have traveled back from the end of the world. In the post, I repeated what Jonathan told me and his behavior of stockpiling supplies. I just omitted the information about heavy rain and only generally said it was the end of the world. Although Jonathan's words were lies, if ordinary people saw it and could stockpile supplies and take protective measures in time, they still had a chance to survive. I'm not a selfless person, and I can only help to this extent. After the post was published, it really caused a heated discussion. Has your boyfriend read too many end-of-the-world novels? I'll be waiting. Remember to hit me when your boyfriend starts reinforcing the house. I don't want to be a cannon fodder netizen. Give me a definite word about when the end of the world will come. I'll be the first to follow the advice. Most of the netizens were just watching the fun, but it couldn't be ruled out that some people really took it to heart, so I replied, the house has been reinforced. The end of the world will come in 2 days. Be sure to stockpile supplies quickly. I also attached a photo. It was a photo of Jonathan and Marina moving supplies. Although I put mosaics on their faces, the open door revealed the house number opposite, which was custom-made and highly recognizable. No one may delve into it now, but once the end of the world breaks out, someone with a discerning eye will definitely be able to follow the clues and find them. At that time, whether Jonathan and Marina can keep their supplies depends on their abilities. After doing all this, I lay in the villa full of a sense of security, watching the rain stop and the night fall. This is the last night that most people will be able to see. After tonight, affected by abnormal geomagnetism, the night will no longer exist. The city will be plunged into a long polar day. 8. The high temperature didn't arrive all of a sudden, but the temperature rose from 20 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius and then to 40 degrees Celsius within a day. This was still an excellent opportunity to stockpile supplies, but most people didn't seize the opportunity and instead celebrated the long-awaited clear weather. Jonathan was even more energetic and called me dozens of times in a row. I didn't answer, and he sent me text messages. Harley, didn't you say that the money would definitely arrive today? Why haven't you given it to me yet? Don't think that the end of the world brought by heavy rain won't come just because it's sunny today. This is the last carnival before the end of the world. After this sunny day, the heavy rain will last for a full 2 years. You must believe me. If the money doesn't arrive any later, we won't have time to prepare. Why aren't you answering my calls? Do you think you can survive the end of the world alone without my help? You know nothing about the end of the world. At the end, there was even a threatening tone. I prevaricated and replied, it'll be soon. It will arrive before tonight. Just wait a little longer. As long as I can drag it out for today, the temperature will rise to 50 degrees Celsius. By then, it will be difficult for Jonathan to even go out, and it will be hard for him to pose a threat to me. However, Jonathan still wasn't reassured, afraid that I wouldn't give him the money. He actually came to the suburban villa with Marina. As soon as they came, they found something was wrong. The fence was tight. Although they couldn't see the interior of the villa, the newly installed high-voltage electricity on the fence revealed the problem. If I planned to sell the villa, why would I install a high-voltage electric fence? The expressions of the two of them immediately changed. Jonathan called me right away. I slowly answered the phone just as the ringtone was about to end. Harley, didn't you say that the villa had already been sold? What's the meaning of installing high-voltage electricity? Jonathan questioned me bluntly, hardly able to hide his anger. You're in the villa, right? Where's the money? Do you still want to survive the end of the world or not? Jonathan tried to put pressure on me. This might have worked in my previous life, but for me now, it's just ridiculous. I said coldly, Jonathan, I've seen it all. You and Marina are not siblings at all, but lovers, aren't you? With just this simple sentence, Jonathan immediately fell silent. He exchanged a look with Marina, and they both saw panic in each other's eyes. Marina was the first to react and pretended to be innocent, crying, Sister Harley, what nonsense are you talking about? Is there some kind of misunderstanding? Jonathan also pretended to be affectionate. Yeah, it must be a misunderstanding. I've been with you for so long. Haven't I treated you well? How can you suspect me for no reason? It's not a misunderstanding. I'm very sure. I was decisive and just Wouldn't tell them the source of the information. This made Jonathan even more irritable, and he didn't even know where to start to cover up the lie. Harley, open the door. Let's talk it out face to face. Aren't you afraid of the end of the world brought by heavy rain? You can't survive alone. Let's solve the problem face to face. Open the door quickly. I'm not stupid. If I opened the door and let them in, they would kill me. I definitely wouldn't let them know that the real end of the world was caused by high temperatures, and that I had already stocked up enough supplies. Jonathan, since you even lied to me about our relationship, how could the end of the world be real? Even if the end of the world is real, I'd rather be drowned by the heavy rain in the villa than stay with you two scumbags. As soon as I said this, they finally fully realized that I wouldn't give them the money anymore. The vicious look in Jonathan's eyes was revealed, and there was no longer the tenderness of the past. After a while, he gritted his teeth and left me with a sentence, Harley, you'll regret it. 9. Jonathan and Marina left unwillingly, but I knew that with their viciousness, they must have a backup plan. I estimated the time. When they were almost home, I turned on the monitoring. Jonathan and Marina were both sweating and couldn't wait to turn on the air conditioner. Marina complained, it's too hot in this damn weather. The temperature has risen to 40 degrees Celsius in one day. Harley definitely won't believe in the end of the world brought by heavy rain anymore. Then we'll take it by force. Jonathan gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, the security in the villa area is strict during the day, so it's not convenient to take action. When it gets cooler at night, we'll find a way to sneak into the villa and tie her up, right? If soft methods don't work, we'll use force. We've set up this situation for so long, and we can't let it fail. The two of them discussed that they would start their action when it cooled down at night, but they didn't know there would be no more night. In the following few days, the temperature will gradually rise to 50 degrees Celsius. The polar day and high temperature plunged people into panic, and major supermarkets were quickly emptied by panic buyers. Before long, the water supply was cut off. Fortunately, the power system was still intact. As long as one stayed indoors, the air conditioner could relieve the heat. Jonathan and Marina tried to go out but were quickly forced back by the heat waves. However, fortunately, they had sufficient supplies. Fortunately, we stocked up so many supplies to deceive Harley in the first place. It can be considered a lucky coincidence. Yeah, supplies are in short supply now, and many people have gone crazy trying to food and water. Let's hide the supplies well and not give out even a drop, of course. For the sake of the supplies, let Harley live a few more days. We'll kill her after the high temperature ends. In the surveillance, the two of them were enjoying themselves, blowing the air conditioner and drinking beverages, but I knew that their good days wouldn't last long. Someone had already recognized Jonathan's location from the post I had published online. According to the decoration of the corridor, it's Panicke community, right? The house number opposite is 3201, so the boyfriend of the poster should be in 3202. Panicke community is a large community with more than 10 high-rise buildings. Seeing the photo of Jonathan and Marina with a room full of supplies, the neighbors in the community were envious. Countless people swarmed to their door, begging for supplies. Please, my child has been hungry for 2 days, and there's nothing left in the supermarket. We're all neighbors. What's wrong with you sharing some of your supplies to help us? Don't be so selfish. Can you bear to watch so many neighbors starve to death? We'll just stay at your door. I don't believe you won't open the door. The voices were loud and the scene was bustling. As I expected, Jonathan and Marina remained unmoved. They even sneered, what does it matter to us if you starve, thirst, or get roasted to death? They made up their minds not to open the door and decided to hold out in the house. However, before long, the power went out. With the final hum, the air conditioners in the entire community stopped. The coolness quickly dissipated. Then, a surging heat wave came. The whole house was like a huge teppanyaki grill, roasting and frying the two of them inside. Just for a moment, it made people feel extremely miserable. Marina couldn't stand it first. It's so hot. Why is it so hot? Let's go to the corridor to get some air. No, there are people everywhere outside. Once we open the door, they'll snatch our supplies. Then are we just going to wait here and get roasted to death? Didn't Harley install high molecular waterproof nanomaterials in our house? With such good materials, why isn't there any heat insulation effect at all? As soon as she said this, the two of them realized something was wrong with the room. The walls were astonishingly hot, and one could easily get their fingers burned. It was even hotter than the temperature outside. Jonathan gasped and tore off the wallpaper. Only then did he realize upon closer inspection, this wasn't high molecular nanomaterials at all, but just ordinary metal sheets. Damn it, Harley. She wants to steam us to death in this iron box. He pulled at the metal sheets, trying to tear them off, but it was too hot. His fingers were burned with countless blisters, but the metal sheets didn't budge at all. I can't take it anymore. The two of them were so weak from the heat that they seemed almost cooked. I was really curious about what choice they would make. Open the door, have their supplies snatched, and wait to starve to death. Close the door, guard the supplies, and get steamed to death alive. This was the most interesting proposition I had prepared for them. I stared intently in front of the surveillance. Although the power was out, the mobile phone signal was still there, and the surveillance was still powered by the battery. This allowed me to watch the whole show. In the end, it was Marina who couldn't stand it anymore. Overwhelmed by the heat, she crawled with difficulty to the door and opened it. The neighbors outside swarmed in and frantically snatched the supplies. Jonathan tried his best to protect them, but he could only keep 2 bottles of water. The other supplies were all taken away, but at least they survived after getting out of the iron cage. I was a bit disappointed. I had thought I could witness them being roasted until their bones were exposed on the spot. It seemed I had to wait a little longer. Just as I was feeling regretful, the phone rang. As expected, it was Jonathan, who had finally come to his senses. I answered the phone readily. "Harley, you poisonous woman. Did you install the metal sheets with the intention of killing me?" "Yeah," I readily admitted. "How do you feel about being grilled like teppanyaki?" Jonathan was shaking with anger. "So, you never intended to give me the money in the first place?" "Of course. Let me tell you one more thing. These metal sheets were bought with a loan using your 2 ID cards." "Harley," Jonathan's hoarse voice burst out from his throat. "How could I not have seen before that you're such a heartless and cruel person? It's the end of the world. And you still want to PUA me?" I chuckled. "I'll be waiting to see how you die." There was no response on the other end of the phone for a long time. I looked down and found that the mobile phone signal was also gone. The whole city had no water, no electricity, and no network, falling into complete chaos. This didn't have much of an impact on me. After all, I had already stocked up enough food and water, and there was a stable power supply from the solar panels. But it was different for Jonathan and Marina. The house had become a teppanyaki grill, and their supplies had been snatched away. With such a situation, they wouldn't be able to survive for long in the apocalypse. I didn't know where they would go. Given their way of doing things, they would most likely rob others of their supplies, engaging in looting, killing, and arson. But that had nothing to do with me anymore. I was in the basement, blowing the air conditioner and enjoying delicious food. Thanks to my sufficient preparations, I was living quite comfortably, but I didn't expect that half a month later, I would see them again. One day, I was reading a book in the basement. Before the apocalypse, I bought a lot of paper books and put them in the basement. While satisfying my material needs, I couldn't forget about spiritual nourishment either. I was deeply engrossed in reading when the surveillance at the main gate of the villa suddenly reminded me that there were strangers staying there. I took a closer look and was surprised to find that it was Jonathan and Marina. I didn't know how they managed to walk all the way here in the high temperature. With the supplies they had left at that time, it was impossible for them to have survived until now. I didn't know how many people's corpses they had stepped on to find this place. Both of them were emaciated beyond recognition, especially Marina, whose skin was crimson and whose eyes were glassy. It seemed to be the symptoms of heatstroke. In their current state, did they still dare to dream of snatching the villa for me? They were overestimating themselves. Jonathan obviously knew this too and lowered his stance. "Harley, I know you're in the villa. Please open the door." "Okay, I was in the wrong before. I was temporarily bewitched. I've thought it through during these days. In fact, I only regard Marina as my sister. The one I love the most in my heart has always been you." Jonathan really knew how to be flexible. He was so skilled at using such words. Oh, I pretended to be interested, wanting to hear what else he could come up with. Jonathan spoke in a dry and hoarse voice. Even though his lips were chapped, he still tried to speak. "Harley, we don't know how long this high temperature will last. I'm not leaving you alone. I can only take care of you when I'm by your side. Let me in and stay with you." He actually had the nerve to say such a thing. I clicked on the microphone of the doorbell and sneered. "You came to seek refuge with me just like this, bringing your childhood sweetheart. Do you think I'm really that stupid?" Jonathan was taken aback and understood the hidden meaning in my words. He pondered for a moment and then asked, "Do you mean that if I don't bring her, you'll let me in?" The corner of my lips curled into a cold smile. "It depends on your performance." Jonathan looked at Marina beside him, who was breathing rapidly and looking dazed. Without thinking too long, he made a decision. "Marina, just bear with it for my sake." He stretched out his withered arm and unhesitatingly pushed Marina into the unobstructed sunlight. The villa area used to be shady with green trees. Now, although the trees had withered and died, they were still large in size and could still block some of the heat. They walked all the way in the shade of the trees, and when they reached the gate of my house, there was the shelter of the eaves, which was why they had the strength to finish these words. But under the high temperature of the apocalypse, it was extremely difficult to survive when facing the sunlight directly. What's more, Marina was already delirious due to heatstroke. She gasped, twitched all over, and foamed at the mouth before falling to the ground. As soon as the foam came out of her mouth, it was evaporated by the sunlight. I had thought Jonathan loved his childhood sweetheart so much. In the end, he just watched Marina being roasted by the high temperature and twitching to death, from a person to a dried-up corpse. The death scene was extremely tragic. Jonathan twitched the corner of his mouth and looked at the camera at the door as if he had accomplished something. Harley, are you satisfied with what I did? Now I only have you, let me in. In the extreme high temperature, I felt an intense chill, whether it was to me or Marina. As long as it was beneficial to him, he could mercilessly kill. Was this a human being or a devil? What was more terrifying than the apocalypse was the human heart. No way. My voice was cold, and I had completely lost the interest in dealing with him. Jonathan's pupils suddenly dilated, and his throat was like rusty metal. He slowly and laboriously uttered 3 words. You're playing with me. What? Are you surprised? That's exactly what I'm doing. Do you know how many people's corpses I stepped on to get here? I don't know. Besides, what does it have to do with me? Jonathan swayed. He was already having difficulty breathing, and he almost exhausted all his strength just to say these few words. After a long while, he begged again. Harley, considering that I told you about the apocalypse, give me a way to live. I couldn't help but sneer. You told me. How dare you say such a thing? Do you think I don't know? The end of the world brought by heavy rain you talked about was originally a hoax. It was to take away all my property and my life. In my previous life, you really succeeded. So the one who told me about the end of the world wasn't you, but myself who had died once. You killed me, and you still dare to dream that I'll save you. I wish I could flay you alive, crush your bones, and scatter your ashes. Before this, Jonathan had always fantasized that I still had feelings for him, but when the truth was revealed, his fantasy was completely shattered. The last glimmer of hope in Jonathan's eyes faded away, leaving only deathly despair. He finally realized a reality. No matter how he performed, it was impossible for me to save him, and he didn't have the strength to walk back either. The scorching heat was sizzling on his body. It was so uncomfortable. It was as if a pair of big hands were gripping his throat, trying to squeeze out all the moisture in his body. What's more, he was conscious, and it was as painful and slow as the lingering death of being sliced. Jonathan couldn't bear it any longer. He raised his hand and tried to grab the high-voltage electricity on the fence of the villa. How could he have the luxury of dying quickly? I was quick and quietly turned off the high-voltage electricity. I wanted him to die bit by bit in front of my eyes, slowly watching his life being roasted and evaporating. He deserved it. Blood. It's fresh blood. Soon, someone found Jonathan, who had fallen to the ground. It was a resident of the villa opposite, although they also had solar panels to supply the air conditioner. They were extremely short of water. Before, I had seen them go out to look for fresh corpses, trying to drain blood to distill some water. Now, they had found Jonathan and Marina. Is he completely dead? Don't let the blood coagulate. Only fresh blood is useful. He's still alive. Hurry up and take him back to drain the blood. We should be able to distill a few bottles of water. The bodies of Jonathan and Marina were dragged away. I wish they could live a little longer and stay alive to feel the pain of their blood flowing away bit by bit. This was what they deserved. 11, half a year later. The night that had disappeared for a long time returned. The polar day phenomenon finally ended, and the survivors, looking at the long-lost night sky, finally tentatively walked outside. Tick-tock, a drop of rain fell on the forehead. Jonathan held my shoulders with both hands and said each word earnestly. Immediately, the rain washed away the heat and came on a large scale. The survivors were overjoyed, crying and laughing at the same time. The high temperature hadn't ended, but a rain brought hope to people. As long as there was hope, there was the courage to persevere. Scientists had developed heat-resistant crops and protective clothing, and had also extracted groundwater and seawater, regularly distributing water resources to the survivors. Social order was gradually restored. The night appeared on time every day, giving everyone a shot in the arm. The high temperature will eventually end. I looked at the rain outside the window and firmly believed, in this life, I not only want to survive, but also live a long, peaceful, and prosperous life. Story 2: The Terrifying high temperature strikes, and the end times escape begins. Emergency notice. The high temperature is continuing to rise. Each family has 3 quotas and can take the first batch of planes to seek refuge in the Arctic first. Our family was sitting around the dining table. My parents looked at each other, as if they had made some kind of decision, just because my younger brother had better grades than me. My parents actually asked me to stay alone, afraid that I would cause trouble. They drugged my dinner while I was lethargic. They took my younger brother and left overnight. I wasn't sad. Instead, I was very happy because I had awakened the system. I smiled and said, "Do you really think it's safe to go to the Arctic?" 3 days ago, the outdoor temperature suddenly rose, jumping from over 30 degrees to over 50 degrees at once. The news reported that the temperature in coastal areas was as high as over 90 degrees, and hundreds of thousands of people had already died from the heat. Moreover, the heat wave was continuously hitting the north and would arrive Within 3 days, the country quickly took countermeasures and transported everyone to the Arctic for refuge in batches, 3 people from each family at a time until the heat wave arrived. Our family was sitting around the dining table. My parents looked at each other anxiously. On the TV, the people in those coastal areas were constantly dying in the high temperature of over 90 degrees wherever the heat wave passed. It would catch fire immediately within 3 seconds. A person exposed to the high temperature could only last for about a minute before being cooked to death. Sweat dripped continuously from our family onto the dining table, and my younger brother was lying on the table, whining. My father nodded at my mother, and my mother said, "Evelyn, your younger brother is still young. How about we take him and leave first tomorrow? Both my younger brother and I are their biological children, but they are partial to my younger brother, maybe because my younger brother has better grades." Holding on to the last glimmer of hope, I asked, "Why can't my younger brother and I leave first, and one of you stay?" As soon as I said this, my mother was instantly speechless and looked at my father for help. My father glared at me and said sternly, "Respect the elders and care for the young. Do you understand filial piety? Do you really want to watch your mother and me be cooked to death?" As soon as my father finished speaking, my last glimmer of hope was shattered. It seemed that they were determined to leave me alone. I didn't say anything more, nodded silently, and then turned around and went back to my room. It was really hot at over 50 degrees. The air conditioner blew out hot air. I huddled in the corner, constantly fanning myself with a fan. My mother's voice came from the living room. "Are we really going to leave him behind?" After a few seconds of silence, my father said, "What else can we do? His grades are not good." Hearing this, I still felt a bit sad. In the end times, with the crisis of life and death, grades had actually become the condition for abandoning me. In the evening, my mother called me out for dinner, maybe out of guilt. My mother kept putting food into my bowl. Because of the high temperature, the food had a bit of a strange taste. I didn't say anything and just ate silently. As I was eating, I felt my eyelids getting heavier and heavier until my eyes went dark. I don't know how long it had passed, and a voice sounded in my mind, "The high temperature end times are coming, and the hatred value system has awakened." My consciousness had already woken up, but I couldn't open my eyes, and my body couldn't move either. The voice sounded again. "The host has received the system. Countdown to waking up. 2, 3, 2, 1. I suddenly opened my eyes and sat up from the bed that had long been soaked with sweat. Was I dreaming just now? What system? What awakening? The dryness in my throat didn't allow me to think. I immediately got out of bed, ran to the living room, and picked up a bottle of water to drink desperately. After drinking the water, I realized that there was no one in the living room. There were only a few bottles of water on the dining table. I shook my head with a bitter smile. Why bother? They were so afraid that I would pester them. Ding, ding, ding. The incoming call ringtone interrupted my sadness. I answered the phone, and the person on the other end said, "Evelyn, how are you? Have you left?" The caller was my deskmate, Aurora, a gentle and kind girl. I gave a bitter laugh and said, "Let me guess, you were also left behind, right?" Aurora said helplessly, "Yes, I'm just the daughter of my stepmother, and I'm a girl. Who else would they leave behind if not me?" Hearing that her mood was low, I comforted her and said, "I'm their biological child, and I was still left behind." Aurora laughed twice and quickly said, "Evelyn, what should we do next? The high temperature will reach here in 3 days. We can't just wait to die at home." Aurora was right. 3 days was not enough for a round trip to the Arctic. I pondered for a few seconds and then said, "Quickly pack all the water sources that you can take. We'll drive. As long as the heatwave doesn't catch up with us, we'll be safe." After hearing this, Aurora agreed without hesitation. Half an hour later, I acquired an SUV from the basement for free and drove to pick up Aurora. Most people had already left. The remaining ones were the abandoned elderly, the weak, the sick, and the disabled, and family outcasts like us. Soon I arrived at Aurora's house. I honked the horn twice, and she came out dragging a large travel bag. Her parents were relatively kind-hearted and left her a lot of water and food. Aurora got into the car and asked, "What should we do next?" Looking at the steaming road, I said, "Head north." Aurora was wearing a white semi-transparent sun protection suit, and the white camisole inside could be faintly seen. I smiled and teased her, saying, "We're fleeing for our lives, not going on vacation. You're wearing something so transparent. Are you trying to seduce me?" I wasn't just joking with her. Her sun protection suit was too thin and couldn't provide good sun protection. At the least, she would get sunburned. At the worst, she could die of dehydration. Aurora glared at me and said resentfully, "What time is it now? And you're still so improper." As soon as she finished speaking, a voice sounded in my mind, detected 10 points of hatred value. Reward the host with 2 popsicles. Warm reminder, when the hatred value reaches 1000, the host can obtain the self-cooling function. Damn it, I wasn't dreaming last night, so I really had obtained the system. Didn't I get the popsicles? Where were the popsicles? I looked around, and finally, my eyes fell on the small side pocket on the side of the backpack. The small side pocket wasn't big, but it could just fit 2 popsicles. I slammed on the Brakes, and Aurora looked at me in horror. She said, "What's wrong? What happened?" I smiled and said, "I have a good thing for you." I took out 2 popsicles from the side pocket of the backpack. The moment Aurora saw them, her eyes lit up. In the weather of over 50 degrees, being able to eat popsicles was extremely luxurious. Aurora directly snatched one and said happily, "Where did you get these?" I said, "I conjured them up." I could only find a random excuse to prevaricate. Aurora wanted to ask more questions, but I stuffed a popsicle into her mouth. I said, "Hurry up and eat it, it will melt in a while." Aurora immediately lowered her head and happily ate the popsicle. With a popsicle in my mouth, I felt refreshed while driving. At the same time, I was thinking about what the system had just said, that when the hatred value reached 100, I could obtain the self-cooling function. I was so deep in thought that the popsicle was eaten up before I knew it. Suddenly, Aurora shouted, "Watch out in front." 3. I subconsciously slammed on the brakes. After stabilizing the car, I saw a person lying on the road ahead. The person raised her arm and waved it with difficulty. She was asking us for help. I looked at the person and then turned back to look at the backpack. One more person meant that we would have to give up 1/3 of our water sources to save an unknown stranger. With the high temperature coming, all the rivers had almost dried up, and the bottled water in supermarkets had long been looted. In the high temperature times, water was undoubtedly more valuable than gold. While I was hesitating, Aurora said, "Let's save her, she's almost dead." I turned my head in surprise and looked at Aurora. I said, "Are you sure? If we save her, we have to give her 1/3 of our water sources." Aurora immediately said, "We can save a little, that's a person." After all, most of the water in the car belonged to Aurora, and I couldn't refuse easily. I could only nod in agreement. "Then you wait, I'll go." After saying that, I drove down. As soon as I got out of the car, a wave of intense heat instantly swept over my whole body. Although I wouldn't be cooked to death immediately, but without water, I could only last for half a day at most. It was so hot. Without looking carefully, I picked up the person and rushed towards the car. Aurora had already taken out a bottle of water. When the person saw the water, she immediately became excited, picked up the water, and drank it desperately. Before she had taken 2 sips, I snatched the water bottle away and said, "If you drink so eagerly, do you want to die? If you want to die, don't waste water." The person looked at the water bottle with an unsatisfied look, pushed back her long hair, and said, "Thank you for saving me." Aurora smiled and said, "Were you also left behind?" A glimmer of relief flashed in the person's eyes, and she said, "I volunteered to stay. I asked my husband to take our 2 children and leave first." Hearing this, I couldn't help but sigh. Love was really great, but not everyone had love. Aurora said, "You're really a great mother. It's okay, we'll set off together." The woman's chapped lips curved into a smile, and she said hoarsely, "Thank you, my name is Sienna." I handed the water bottle to the woman and said, "Drink it slowly, we still have a long way to go." Sienna nodded. The 2 of them kept chatting, and I focused on driving. After driving for a while, I saw a gas station ahead. Just then, the car was almost out of gas. I parked the car next to the gas station and said to Aurora, "I'll go down to refuel and go to the convenience store to take a look. You stay in the car." Aurora nodded and said, "Go ahead, be careful." In the high temperature, I refueled carefully, for fear that the gas station would explode. After refueling, I walked straight towards the convenience store to see if I could find something useful. Although we had water, it wouldn't last long either. Walking into the convenience store, it was hot inside, but much better than outside. At least a person could stay inside without being cooked to death. The convenience store had also been looted. The shelves were empty, with nothing on them. I was disappointed and about to leave when I suddenly thought that convenience stores usually had a storage room. Would there still be stock in there? After looking around, I finally found the door to the storage room. Suddenly, Aurora's voice came from behind. "Did you find anything?" I said with a bit of surprise in my tone. "Why did you come?" Aurora said, "Seeing that you hadn't come out for so long, Sister Sienna asked me to come and see you." Damn it, the silly girl had been deceived. Before I could finish speaking, the sound of a car starting came from outside Aurora and I immediately ran outside. Sienna stepped on the gas pedal and drove the car away. Aurora stood there in a daze, staring wide-eyed at the disappearing car. Suppressing my anger, I said, "Now you understand why I asked you to stay in the car, right?" Aurora lowered her head and muttered softly, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked you to save her." Although I was angry, I still patiently said to Aurora, "It's not wrong for you to be kind, but the situation is special now. You have to be careful about everything." Aurora nodded obediently and said she understood. Looking around, I said, "Now that the car is gone, and the water and food are gone too, let's go to the storage room and take a look." Aurora silently followed behind me. In the high-temperature environment, we were already soaked through. The sun protection suits clung to our skin, highlighting Aurora's 19-year-old figure extremely attractively. Pushing open the door of the storage room, a gust of cool air blew out instantly. Both Aurora and I became a bit more energetic. Aurora looked up at the inside in surprise. She said, "It's so cool in here." I walked into the storage room and said, "The storage room is made of special materials for long-term storage of goods, so it can insulate the high temperature," Aurora said a bit disappointedly. "If the car hadn't been stolen, we could have stayed in here." I shook my head and said while checking the environment, "The maximum heat resistance of this storage room is 60 degrees. In a few days, we won't be able to stay here either." Before I finished speaking, I saw something in the corner covered by a waterproof cloth. Walking over and lifting the waterproof cloth, a box of mineral water and a box of biscuits were placed in the corner. Aurora's face lit up when she saw the water. "Why is there a box of water here?" I squatted down to check the water and said, "There are two possibilities. One is that someone hid it and for some reason didn't take it away. The other is that others didn't find it." Aurora asked me, "Now that we have survival supplies, what should we do next?" After thinking for a while, I said, "Take a good rest while this storage room can still insulate the heat. When the temperature drops a bit at night, we'll set off on foot." Aurora opened her mouth wide in shock. She said, "Ah, on foot." I turned around and sat down, leaning against the cool wall. I said, "Otherwise, now we don't have a car, and the high temperature is still rising. In less than 3 days, the temperature will reach 80 degrees. By then, we can only wait to die. We can only keep walking north to have a hope of survival." After hearing my words, Aurora helplessly sat down next to me. In the brief coolness, we soon fell asleep. When we woke up again, it was already night. Aurora and I carefully walked outside. It was pitch black outside. The high temperature had caused power outages in most places, without a signal. The mobile phone had also become a lighting tool. Aurora and I wrapped the water and biscuits with a waterproof cloth. I carried the water, and she carried the biscuits. The two of us, in the dark night, with the hope of life, walked towards the north. Aurora walked in front, under the illumination of the mobile phone. Aurora's hips swayed as she walked. Suddenly, a naughty thought came to my mind. I said, "Aurora, your butt is so big, whoever marries you in the future will definitely have a son." Aurora turned around and scolded shyly, "Pervert, what time is it now?" Sure enough, the next second, a voice sounded, "System prompt, hatred value +1. When the hatred value reaches 20, the host can obtain a full tank car." Hearing that I could get a car, my eyes immediately lit up. "Aurora, I'm sorry, but I have to wrong you." Aurora saw me staring at her with a mischievous smile. She stopped shyly and said angrily, "You pervert, you walk in front." I immediately said, "No, you walk in front, big butt." Aurora raised her foot and kicked at me. I dodged while saying, big butt, big butt." The system prompt sounds kept ringing, hatred value +1, +1, +1. It kept adding up to 18, and then I suddenly called a stop. 5. Aurora looked at me in confusion, and I tried shouting big but again. Seeing that the system didn't respond, I muttered to myself, "This is boring." Aurora also ignored me and walked ahead on her own. We walked and stopped all the way until it was slightly dawn. The temperature started to rise. Aurora wiped the sweat from her forehead and said, "The temperature is starting to rise. Let's find a place to rest." I looked around at the desolate surroundings and said, "Let's take a look ahead and find a place to shelter from the scorching sun." Aurora and I walked for a while longer. Aurora kept her head down and walking, and didn't notice the situation ahead. I grabbed Aurora and pulled her behind an abandoned car by the side of the road. Aurora was a bit confused and looked at me in confusion. She asked, "What's wrong?" I pointed ahead and whispered, "Look, we've met an old acquaintance." 50 meters ahead, 2 men wrapped up tightly were dragging a woman out of the car. The woman was Sienna. When Aurora saw the car, she widened her eyes and said, "Isn't that our car?" I said with glee. See, she got what she deserved. Sienna was being dragged violently on the ground, and her feet were struggling and kicking constantly. One of the men was a bit impatient and kicked Sienna twice in the abdomen. Then the 2 men jumped into the car and were about to leave. Seeing this, Sienna endured the severe pain in her abdomen and got up. "Leave me some water, or I'll die." Sienna grabbed the car door and kept pleading. The next second, a hand reached up from the car and fired a shot at Sienna's forehead. Aurora and I were shocked when we saw this scene. Aurora was so scared that she let out a scream. I quickly covered her mouth, but it was too late. The 2 men got out of the car directly, walked past the already dead Sienna, and came straight towards us. Aurora curled up in fear, and my heart was almost jumping out of my chest. Looking around, besides the abandoned car we were hiding behind, there was only a cornfield by the roadside, but those 2 men had guns, and no matter how fast we ran, we couldn't be faster than bullets. The footsteps were getting closer, and Aurora and I were so nervous that we didn't even dare to breathe. Bang bang, suddenly, 2 gunshots rang out. A few seconds later, a man in a police uniform walked out of the cornfield. 6. The man glanced at Aurora and me, then raised his gun and walked towards the 2 men who had been knocked down. "Don't move, I'll shoot if you move again," the man shouted sternly Aurora, and I walked out tremblingly. One of the two men just now had been shot dead, and the other hadn't been hit in a vital part. The man turned his head and looked at us. My name is Jackson, and I'm a policeman from the police station, Aurora, and I looked at the man on the ground. I said, Officer Jackson, what are they doing? Officer Jackson said, murderers who escaped from the police station. The man who hadn't been shot dead looked at Officer Jackson viciously. Suddenly, I had an idea. Wasn't this a chance to get hatred value delivered to my doorstep? I walked over and squatted down beside the man, and said sarcastically, look at you, you're really a loser. You were given a chance, but you couldn't even escape. With your intelligence, you still commit crimes. Go home and farm. I launched a verbal attack on the man. Officer Jackson and Aurora looked at me in surprise. Sure enough, the man turned his resentful gaze towards me and reached out to grab me, but I dodged. I made a face at him, and he was so angry that he wanted to jump up and kill me. The next second, the system prompted murderous intent from the criminal, pure hatred value plus 100. Damn, it added so much. Wouldn't the reward be doubled? Where's the reward? I thought to myself. The system seemed to be able to hear my thoughts. The reward has been arranged ahead. Obtain a survival vehicle for the end times. Warm reminder, when the hatred value reaches 500, you can obtain the self-cooling function known as the central air conditioning. Just as I was excited, Officer Jackson fired a shot at the man. Aurora widened her eyes and opened her mouth, unable to say anything. My heart skipped a beat, and I turned my gaze to Officer Jackson. Looking at his cold expression, I realized that he was definitely not a policeman. His eyes were too cold, not what a policeman's eyes should be like. I frowned and asked, Officer Jackson, isn't it inappropriate to do this? Officer Jackson was slightly taken aback and immediately changed his expression to a smile. He said, now that the end times have come, if such people don't die, who knows how many crimes they will commit. Besides, they were originally sentenced to death. Aurora wanted to speak, but I quickly held her hand. I took the lead and said, Officer Jackson is right, then let's go. Officer Jackson put away his gun and walked straight to the car. I took the opportunity to say to Aurora, there's something wrong with this guy. Be careful and keep an eye on him. A few seconds later, Officer Jackson got out of the car again and said, the car is broken. Officer Jackson took the water and food from the car, and the three of us walked forward on foot. We hadn't walked far when Officer Jackson turned around and shouted excitedly, look, there's a motorhome ahead. I pretended to be excited too and quickly echoed, great, let's go and see if it can be started. When we walked up to the motorhome, Officer Jackson happily looked it up and down, then he opened the car door, got into the driver's seat, and tried to start the engine. After trying a few times, Officer Jackson got out of the car disappointedly. He said, it's a pity that it's broken. I was puzzled. Broken? It shouldn't be. Why would the system reward a broken vehicle? I said, let me try. As soon as I sat in the driver's seat and turned the key, the car started smoothly. Damn, does this car recognize its owner? Officer Jackson said in disbelief. This is crazy. Why can you start it? I smiled bitterly and said, maybe I'm just lucky. Officer Jackson nodded, opened the car door, and walked into the motorhome. It was very luxurious inside, with a stove, a bathroom, and everything you could need. No wonder it's a survival vehicle for the end times. The most important thing is that it has an air conditioner. Aurora looked at Officer Jackson's back and remembered what I had said. She chose to sit in the passenger seat. Seeing this, Officer Jackson asked in confusion, why did you sit in the front? Aurora was stunned and didn't know how to answer. I said, I'm easily distracted when driving. I asked her to keep an eye on things for me. Officer Jackson let out an "oh" and then turned around to take a shower. Aurora whispered, I don't think he's really a policeman. I said, he definitely isn't. Be careful. The longer we stayed with him, the more I realized that he didn't have the temperament of a policeman. His words and deeds didn't have the alertness and keenness that a policeman should have either. 7. After taking a shower, Officer Jackson lay down on the sofa and fell asleep. Along the way, the once prosperous city had long become a desolate place. Looking out, the scorching high temperature had swallowed up all the greenery. All that was left was endless grayish yellow and despair. We kept driving the car and traveled for 2 days. On the evening of the third day, we parked the car by the roadside and prepared to eat, just as we opened a bottle of water. Aurora said, did you hear that? Officer Jackson and I looked at each other and immediately became alert. There were slight rustling sounds outside the car. Officer Jackson pulled out his gun and stood beside the door of the motorhome. Aurora pressed closely against my back, and I could feel her hand trembling slightly. The rustling sound suddenly stopped. The next second, several strong lights shone through the car window. A dry voice shouted, people in the car, you are surrounded, come out obediently. I frowned slightly. Were we being robbed? I looked at Officer Jackson, but he still didn't move. None of us dared to make a sound. After a few seconds of silence, the people outside the car shouted again, I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't come out, we'll take action. As soon as the words fell, a burst of shouting came from outside the car. There were at least 7 or 8 of them. Officer Jackson put away his gun and said to me, let's go down. There are too many of them. And we have no chance of winning. Upon hearing this, I comforted Aurora that it was okay, then slowly opened the door and got out of the car. Sure enough, there were more than a dozen men in black standing outside the car, all wrapped up tightly and holding machetes in their hands. The leader said, "This motorhome is nice, hand over the keys." I didn't refuse and pointed to the driver's seat, saying, "The keys are in the car." One of them said, "Gage, the keys are really here." Gage glanced at me, then sat in the driver's seat. As expected, after he operated it for a while, the car didn't start. He angrily smashed the steering wheel twice and got out of the car in a huff. Just as Gage was about to kick me, his eyes were suddenly attracted by Aurora. He smiled lewdly, walked up to Aurora, and flirted. "This little sister is nice. Is she your girlfriend?" I didn't answer. Gage tried to reach out and touch Aurora. I said, "I can start the car. There's water and food in the car. And there's also an air conditioner. In this end times, staying outside for even one more second is torture." When Gage heard about the water and food, he immediately turned his gaze to me. He said, "You go. If you can't start the car, I'll kill you, and then I'll take your girlfriend by force." I gritted my teeth, suppressed the anger in my heart, and gently patted Aurora, who was shaking constantly. I sat in the driver's seat, turned the key slightly, and the engine roared to life. Gage jumped onto the passenger seat in surprise, looked at me, and cursed, "Damn it, this is so strange." As soon as the others heard that the car had started, they all jumped into the car excitedly. Gage said in a commanding tone, "Drive, or I'll kill you." 8. I looked at Officer Jackson and Aurora and motioned for Officer Jackson to protect Aurora. Officer Jackson nodded understandingly. After that, under Gage's instructions, I drove the car into an abandoned building. When we got out of the car, we saw that there were still dozens of people sitting in the dark corner of the wall, mostly women and children. In the high-temperature environment, there was a sour and foul smell pervading all around. 5 or 6 big men in black were walking back and forth with various weapons in their hands. Gage got out of the car, walked up to a man in black, and said, "Have you found those people who ran away before?" The man in black shook his head. Gage then walked up to the more than a dozen people. "You stay here obediently. There's food and drink. Why do you always want to run away?" Those dozens of people leaned against each other, their eyes full of fear, and no one dared to speak. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke behind me. "All right, stop them, Aurora," and I turned around in shock. The person who spoke was actually Officer Jackson. When Gage heard Officer Jackson speak, he immediately said, "Yes, boss." Officer Jackson looked at me with a disbelieving expression on my face. He smiled and said, "Sorry, I deceived you." "Oh, no. Most of you were deceived by me." Only then did I realize that Officer Jackson was in the same group as these people, and he was even the leader. Aurora's voice trembled slightly, and she asked timidly, "Aren't you a policeman?" Seeing Aurora's innocent look, Officer Jackson sneered and said, "I took this uniform from the police station, just to make you lower your guard." I frowned tightly, grabbed Aurora firmly, and asked in a deep voice, "What do you want so many people for?" Officer Jackson pondered for 2 seconds and said, "Well, at first, I wanted to use them as bargaining chips. Now that I know no one will come to care about us anymore, they have become reserve food." Although I had already suspected that there was something wrong with him, I didn't expect him to be such a vicious person. Officer Jackson noticed my unease and said with a false smile, "Don't worry, you're smarter than them, and I won't touch you." After saying that, Officer Jackson walked up to me and put one hand on my shoulder. He turned around and said, "Keep an eye on them." Then he took Aurora and me to a small room. There was only a sofa and a table in the room, and a precarious kerosene lamp was placed on the table. Officer Jackson and I sat facing each other, and Aurora nervously looked around. I directly asked, "What on earth do you want?" Officer Jackson, who had been smiling maliciously, immediately became serious. He said, "I want you to help me get rid of Gage." When he said this, Aurora and I were both stunned. Weren't they in the same group? Why did he want to get rid of Gage? I frowned and looked at Officer Jackson. Which side of him was real and which side was fake? Officer Jackson glanced at the door and said in a low voice, "On the surface, I'm the leader, but in fact, Gage is the head of that group of people." Seeing that I remained silent for a long time, Officer Jackson continued, "Gage and his group are all extremely vicious people. They may turn against me at any time. To really protect those people, we must get rid of Gage." I thought for a while and didn't know whether to believe him or not. Seeing my hesitation, Officer Jackson reminded me, "The heat wave will arrive soon. There's not much time left." There really wasn't a better solution in the current situation. With the heat wave coming from behind, we couldn't afford to waste time. Although I wasn't sure if Officer Jackson was telling the truth or not, compared to Gage, he seemed more trustworthy. "Okay, I promise you. How do we do it?" When Officer Jackson saw that I nodded and agreed, the tension on his face gradually eased. Officer Jackson thought for a few seconds and said, "There are about 20 people in Gage's group. We definitely can't fight them head on. We have to make him die in an accident." "An accident?" Aurora frowned in confusion. Officer Jackson said, "Yes, an accident. As long as he dies in an accident, I'll have a way to control the others." Suddenly, a burst of laughter came from outside the door. I thought to myself that it was over. The plan had been discovered before it even started. 8. Gage walked in with a machete in his hand. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes, and he stared fixedly at Officer Jackson. He said coldly, "Jackson, you're a smart person, not like me, a reckless man, but sometimes being too smart isn't a good thing." Officer Jackson still sat on the sofa and looked at Gage without saying a word. Gage held the machete and walked step by step to Officer Jackson's side. He slowly sat down and was about to put the knife on Officer Jackson's neck. Suddenly, Officer Jackson stood up and kicked Gage down onto the sofa. Gage didn't expect Officer Jackson to take action. He directly hit the sofa and finally rolled to the ground. Officer Jackson was quick-eyed and quick-handed. He quickly stepped on Gage's hand holding the knife. With a force, Gage's knife was disarmed and kicked to the corner. The subordinates outside heard the commotion here, and 3 of them rushed in with weapons in their hands. When they saw the situation here, Gage had already been pulled up from the ground, and a pistol was pressed against his head. Officer Jackson had been hiding the pistol all this time, just to turn the tide of the final battle. Seeing that he was being pointed at by a gun, Gage immediately lost his temper. He quickly begged for mercy. "Jackson, don't be impulsive. I'll agree to whatever you want." Officer Jackson shouted at the 3 subordinates at the door. "Get out of the way," he said to me and Aurora. "Follow me. Let's go." We walked out. When the subordinates outside saw Gage being held at gunpoint, they all rushed forward. Gage kept begging for mercy. Slow down, don't accidentally discharge the gun," Officer Jackson shouted at the surrounding people. "If you don't want him to die, all of you get out of the way and let those people go." The people huddled in the corner stood up immediately when they heard that they could leave. Gage's subordinates looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Officer Jackson pressed the gun against Gage's temple, and Gage immediately said, "Let them go, let them go." Those people were stunned for a moment, not knowing what to do. I took the opportunity to shout, "What are you still looking at? Hurry up and go." As soon as I finished speaking, those people rushed out like startled birds. After they all left, Officer Jackson asked again, "Where's our motorhome?" Gage was almost peeing his pants at this time and quickly said, "It's outside." Officer Jackson threatened Gage, and we slowly walked towards the motorhome outside. Gage's subordinates closely followed behind, glaring at us with fierce eyes. When we reached the motorhome, Officer Jackson asked me to drive. Aurora sat in the passenger seat, and I started the car, ready to step on the gas pedal to the floor at any time. Officer Jackson slowly backed onto the motorhome and suddenly shouted, "Drive." I stepped on the gas pedal hard. Then, with a gunshot, the motorhome shut out instantly. I looked in the rear view mirror. Gage had fallen to the ground, and his subordinates were chasing the motorhome fiercely. Aurora said, "Why are they still chasing?" I was also confused. Gage was already dead. Why were they still chasing us? 9. Soon I understood. I kept looking in the rear view mirror and didn't notice the road ahead until Aurora and Officer Jackson shouted at the same time, "Watch out in front." By the time I reacted, it was too late. The bridge ahead had collapsed. Even if I braked in time, we still flew straight out. The motorhome plunged into the river, and finally, we could still hear curses coming from the bridge. The system prompt sounded, "Hatred value plus 500. The water in the river was almost dry, and the front of the motorhome sank into the sill. We were also knocked unconscious. When we woke up again, we were in a warehouse. There was a circle of people around us, mostly those we had rescued from Gage. Among them was actually a face I was extremely familiar with. "Dad, Mom, weren't you going to the Arctic?" I asked in surprise. My mom looked at me coldly, with a look of disgust on her face. My dad said with a bit of fatigue on his face, "Not long after we set off, the plane encountered a high-temperature air current and had an accident." I suddenly remembered something and quickly asked, "Where's Aurora?" My dad said, "She's over there." At this time, a familiar figure walked out of the crowd. Officer Jackson smiled and said, "You're awake." I nodded. Officer Jackson suddenly said, "Now that you're awake, get up quickly, we have to go." I frowned slightly and asked in confusion, "Go where? Where are we going?" As soon as I finished speaking, before Officer Jackson could speak, my mom spoke, "It's all because of you, this jinx. You don't know where you brought a group of murderers from." Murderers? I suddenly understood that my mom was talking about Gage's subordinates. Officer Jackson said, "They chased us from under the bridge. They should be here soon." I struggled to get up and walked towards Aurora, saying, "Then let's go quickly." A black shadow rushed out in the dark, bumped into me, and ran straight towards my mom. It was my younger brother. He bumped into me on purpose. I sneered and continued walking towards Aurora. Aurora was leaning against the corner, and several girls were taking care of her. One of the girls said, "Her leg is injured. She can't walk." I said, "It's okay. I'll carry her." After saying that, I carried Aurora on my back and turned to Officer Jackson and said, "Let's go." As for my parents and my younger brother, from the moment they left me alone, I didn't care about them anymore. Aurora hadn't woken up yet. I was carrying her and was about to walk towards the door. Bang, bang, bang. Open the door, or we'll chop you to death. The big iron door of the warehouse was being kicked loudly. Officer Jackson immediately said to everyone, "We'll leave from the back door." After passing through the warehouse, I realized that the place we were in was a deserted factory area. What came into view was a long corridor. While I was in a daze, those people had already caught up. Officer Jackson shouted, "Run!" The corridor wasn't wide, and it instantly became crowded when people panicked. I held onto Aurora tightly and struggled to run forward. There were continuous screams from behind. I turned around and saw that several people who were running slowly had been cut down to the ground. Soon we saw the end of the corridor, and Aurora on my back also woke up. Aurora asked softly and confusedly, "Where is this?" I replied, "We're running for our lives." Aurora looked at the people being cut down one by one behind us and opened her mouth in surprise. Officer Jackson ran at the front. After running through the corridor, he tried to close the door of the corridor. Without electricity, the electric door of the equipment was very heavy. I shouted to the people who had already run out, "Come and help quickly." Some people ran away without looking back, while some people stopped to help Officer Jackson. Just when I was less than 50 meters away from the door, I suddenly felt a strong pull. Under the high temperature, I had been running for so long while carrying Aurora and was already extremely tired. I was directly pulled to the ground, and Aurora and I fell heavily to the ground. Two figures took the opportunity to run past us. It was my mom and my younger brother. My dad had been killed to protect them. My younger brother ran to the door and couldn't help but smile proudly at me. I didn't have time to be angry because those people were about to catch up. The last 3 or 4 people also desperately ran over Aurora and me. I protected Aurora. She was injured, and I could only urgently protect her at this time. The door of the corridor was about to close. Officer Jackson shouted at me, "Hurry up, it's almost too late." 10. Aurora persuaded me, "You go quickly, don't worry about me." I didn't say anything. After everyone had run out, I stood up and carried Aurora on my back again. At this time, those people were less than 10 meters away from me. I carried Aurora and ran towards the door with all my might. Suddenly, Aurora's hand loosened, and she fell directly off my back. I turned around and saw that one of those people had slashed Aurora on the back with a knife. Blood instantly stained Aurora's clothes red, and her brows were tightly due to the pain. Aurora said in a trembling voice, "Go, go." At this time, 2 more people caught up and slashed at me with knives. Suddenly, several gunshots rang out. Those people were immediately stunned and then fell down. Officer Jackson shouted, "Hurry up, the others will catch up soon. There are no bullets left in the gun." When those people heard that there were no bullets left in the pistol, they swarmed up even more. At this time, I was less than 10 meters away from the door. I tried to pull Aurora up to take her with me, but due to the high temperature and my weakness, I didn't have the ability to pull her up. The others outside the door were also urging Officer Jackson to close the door quickly. Seeing that those people were about to catch up, Aurora used all her strength to push me towards the door. Officer Jackson was quick-eyed and quick-handed. He grabbed me and pulled me out of the door. By the time I reacted, the others had already closed the door. I desperately wanted to push the door open again, but it was impossible after all. I could clearly hear that behind the door, Aurora was being hacked to death with random knives, and she let out a few weak wails. I cried heart-rendingly and slapped the big iron door with all my strength. In my mind, there was only the last smile on Aurora's face when she pushed me out of the door. She was happy that she hadn't dragged me down. Officer Jackson walked up to me, squatted down, and gently patted my shoulder. "Don't let her good intentions go to waste." Just then, the most hated voice sounded, "What are you crying for? She's not your wife. If she's dead, she's dead." My mom scolded mercilessly. My younger brother echoed beside her, "Hurry up and go. I don't want to die." Hearing this, my anger surged. If it weren't for them grabbing Aurora, how could she have died? I slowly stood up and said to Officer Jackson, "Do me a favor." Officer Jackson was surprised and said, "What favor?" I looked at my mom coldly and said in a cold voice, "Don't let her interfere." Before my mom could react, I grabbed my younger brother. Officer Jackson immediately understood what I wanted to do and directly subdued my mom on the spot. I grabbed my younger brother and gave him a beating him to death. It was originally my dad's job to educate him, but now my dad was dead. An elder brother is like a father, so I'll educate him on behalf of my father. In fact, this was just an excuse for me to kill him so that I could feel better. My younger brother was beaten so that he hugged his head and wailed. My mom was firmly held by Officer Jackson and could only roar helplessly and curse at me. Thinking of Aurora's death, the more I beat him, the more energetic I became. All my endless anger was directed at my younger brother until I used up all my strength and collapsed weakly to the ground, and my younger brother was no longer moving. I had beaten him to death. The system prompt sounded, putting righteousness above family loyalty, hatred value plus 10,000. My mom fainted from crying when she saw this scene. Everyone present looked at me in fear. Officer Jackson also had a look of disbelief in his eyes. He also didn't expect that someone could beat their own younger brother to death. I wiped the blood splattered on my face, stood up, walked past everyone, and walked straight outside. Officer Jackson asked, "What about your mom?" I said, "If you're willing, you can carry her." Officer Jackson let out an S sound and then followed me without looking back. He said, "Aren't you being a bit cruel? After all, that's your relative." I snorted coldly and said, "Relative? It just sounds good. When I was a child, I loved to cry and was disobedient. My mom would lock me in the toilet and give me leftovers to eat. My dad worked outside and didn't often come home. When she was unhappy, she would beat me. The people in those coastal areas on the TV were constantly dying in the high temperature of over 90 degrees. Why could she tolerate and love him? I'm also her biological child." 11. Officer Jackson and I were walking in the high temperature end times. I asked him, "What kind of person are you exactly? Sometimes you seem like a bad person, and sometimes you seem like a good person." Officer Jackson laughed heartily, and said, "A good person who has done a lot of bad things in the past, I guess." I also laughed. I asked the system if there was any way to stop this end times. The system told me that 20,000 hatred values were needed. I was still short of 10,000. I looked back at the people behind who were almost unable to hold on. I asked the system, "Then how can I immediately get 10,000 hatred values?" The system replied to me that there was a way, and that was me, as long as I had endless hatred and I died, the hatred value would immediately reach 10,000. The system could also immediately stop this high temperature end times. I slowly said, "Well, then let my death stop this end times."